those years as a superhero in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 976, Surrender or Perish. When Tony Stark mentioned the division of land, all the representatives in the audience were a little surprised. What did Tony Stark mean? Since he had already obtained all the agency rights of X Beauty Potion, why did he call himself and others here? What on earth was he trying to do? What did he mean by the division of land? Did he really think he was the Emperor? Regardless of how the people in the audience viewed Tony Stark, he still looked very comfortable and said, "I don't have time to talk to your bosses one by one. Now I will give you 10 minutes to notify your bosses to have a video conference with me or get full authorization from your bosses. Now take action. By the way, in order to make you move faster, I have a piece of news for you." Tony Stark smiled and said, "Starting from August, the entire line of SYNOPSIS Technologies products will be sold at a 30% discount. Seize the opportunity to get on board. The day when you will be completely swept out of this market by me is not far away." The representatives who had not figured out what Tony Stark wanted to do before now frantically picked up their phones and called their bosses. Putting aside other things, the fact that SYNOPSIS Technology has unified the price reduction of all its products is scary enough. At present, SYNOPSIS Technologies products are priced at high-end prices. If the cost is reduced due to the increase in production capacity, the price can be reduced by 30% in the end. Then it has entered the mid-range product price line. This price is affordable for many people. It will no longer make many people feel out of reach. SYNOPSIS Technologies' move is very obvious. It is not only to win over similar products in terms of product quality. At the same time, it is also necessary to completely suppress competing products in terms of price. After the price war starts, it will be the most brutal commercial competition. Tony Stark said such a naked statement. Is this a clear start of war? He wants to completely monopolize the entire beauty industry? Exclamation mark. No one dared to neglect it. They immediately called the chairman and chairman of their own group. Even if the other party is in the middle of the night and the big bosses are sleeping, they must interrupt the other party's sweet dream. In less than 10 minutes, the 50 or so representatives present had already contacted their bosses and connected to the internet with their laptops for a temporary video conference. All the representatives present except Mitsui Takashi, Mark and Gisevic had already left the venue. Because only the most core people were qualified to know about this negotiation. Only these 3 people were fully authorized by the board of directors. Mitsui Takashi was the vice president of Shiseido, and the board of directors directly appointed him to handle the matter. The status of Mark and Gisevic in the group was similar to that of Mitsui Takashi and Shiseido. Their boss and the board of directors believed that it was better to let the living people on the scene to judge the situation directly, at least much better than communicating through video. So they all got the right. At the beginning of the meeting, the CEO of a cosmetics brand from Europe questioned Tony Stark. "What do you mean, Tony Stark? Are you going to kill us all and monopolize the entire market?" Tony Stark said as a matter of course to the question of the pot-bellied CEO, "So what? You have the ability to make consumers not buy my products." The scene was suffocated. Tony Stark did not have any euphemisms. He is a very sharp person, and he likes to do whatever he wants. "Let me tell you all this. From today on, I will completely take over the entire cosmetics market. Just like the monopoly of computer system software, I want all women, and men, to use the SYNOPSIS Technology series of cosmetics in the future." Tony Stark was full of dominance. "I will definitely be the super trust of this industry. Don't be dissatisfied now, this is just the first step of my industrial layout. In the second half of the year, more online products of SYNOPSIS Technology will be launched. We will make comprehensive advances in all fields. From quality to effect, I will leave you at Pacific Ocean away. And the price will be the same as yours. Do you still want to continue to live? Maybe you can only sell eyebrow pencils." Tony Stark's words were simply super provocative. Some CEOs were so angry that they were short of breath. As the vice president of Senior Hall, Mitsui Takashi showed the patience of an Oriental. He was not overly angry because of what Tony said. In fact, even if Tony didn't say these things, the real reaction in the market could be seen. So Mitsui Takashi immediately asked, "Mr. Stark, I believe you did not ask us to come here simply to demonstrate to us. This is the attitude to discuss things. Tony pointed at Mitsui Takashi, and then said to the big CEOs behind the video, "Now I want to unify this industry, and now I will give you a chance. Let you still have the chance to survive." Tony felt that he was being arrogant, but no one dared to think that he was being arrogant. Because the facts were in front of everyone. "I got all the agency rights of X beauty potion. I paid a high enough price, of course you don't need to know what the cost is." Tony adjusted his suit. "Now what I need is some helpers. President Katie has said before that X beauty potion has many uses. I will set up a laboratory to study more interesting uses. I want to market these potions to every corner of the world. And this is your only chance to get on my chariot. If you miss it, just give up." Mitsui Takashi quickly asked, "So, Mr. Stark, what do you want to do?" "I need your channels and publicity," Tony Stark said bluntly. In fact, the products of the Sugwon Technology series did not specifically establish their own channels. Instead, they took the route of convenience stores and drugstores. "But I want to make it easier to sell X Beauty Pharmacy. Your products have penetrated into every wholesale department in every city in every country. Your products are sold in grocery stores on the corners of the street. This is your advantage." The product line of X Beauty Pharmacy not only includes expensive products such as Body Sculpting Master, but also many cheap and entertaining low-end products. "I want this entire series to cover all corners of the earth. The convenience of people buying X Beauty Pharmacy is as simple as buying Coca-Cola. And this is the only place where you are valuable now. I am the biggest boss, and you will all become my next boss. Make a choice now, surrender or perish." Tony Stark let everyone make the final decision with a smile on his face. Chapter 977 Medical Plan. Negotiate, argue, and then break down. Then regain your sanity and return to the negotiation table to start negotiating and arguing. This is what Tony Stark needs to do to unify the global pharmaceutical and cosmetics industry. In fact, there are not many companies that can compete head-on with Sugwon Technology. Even Unilever and Procter & Gamble cannot completely abandon the cosmetics and beauty market. So in the end, under Tony Stark's almost harsh exploitation, most of the manufacturers signed unequal treaties. Sugwon Technology will become the largest agent, monopolizing the distribution of all X beauty potions except Latvia and the medieval market. Other companies will serve as small distributors below, and they will provide channels and resources to obtain part of the profits from the entire industry. For some companies, Sugwon Technology directly proposed a business proposal for mergers and acquisitions. Everything is going on in an orderly manner. And just when this major event that will change the global beauty landscape is quietly underway, another earth-shattering news began to break out. Harry Osborn, the head of the Osborn Group, another giant in American companies, has already secretly arrived in Tuvalu. No one was alarmed, and no news media or official got the news. Harry Osborn appeared in Tuvalu. If it weren't for Katie's update on Twitter and Weibo that night, which included a photo of her and Harry, and attached a text, "Dinner with Harry was as pleasant as the discussion with him." The appearance of this message also set off the internet. Why did the head of the Osborn Group go to Tuvalu? Exclamation mark. Especially when Tony Stark is also in Tuvalu. Everyone knows that Tony went to Tuvalu for the X beauty potion. But why did Harry Osborn go to Tuvalu? He doesn't sell beauty products. And soon everyone knew the reason why Harry Osborn went to Tuvalu. Harry Osborn's private regenerative medicine center officially announced that the regenerative medicine center will have a comprehensive cooperation with Tuvalu. Try to integrate the X potion into the medical field, because there are quite a few X gene abilities that can be very helpful in medical treatment. For example, AIDS. Although many people are afraid of AIDS, there are still many people who don't know what the real face of AIDS is. They just know that it is a terminal illness. The real power of AIDS is to destroy the human immune system and paralyze it. AIDS itself cannot kill people, but once the human immune system is paralyzed, even a small cold can take a person's life. AIDS is incurable, and the defect of the immune system will accompany the patient throughout his life until death. However, there are some very interesting abilities in the X gene, such as immune system cells that can reproduce rapidly and are extremely active. This ability sounds great, but it is not perfect. Because this ability cannot be controlled, if the ability continues, it is very likely that the body will collapse. For example, Deadpool's immortality ability is very similar to this ability. Deadpool was injected with a special drug that made his body cells super active, But at the same time his body also had extremely serious cancer. Cancer cells spread throughout his body. Deadpool relied on this super regeneration gene to control the cancer cells, but he could not completely cure the cancer. Because if he completely cured the cancer, he would be killed by this super regeneration gene. Because the activity of this super regeneration gene would cause his body to completely collapse. But he could not cancel this ability, because if this ability disappeared, the spreading cancer cells would quickly kill him. After reaching a deal worth $15 million with Deadpool, Deadpool agreed to extract this gene from his body for research. Dr. Hank has developed related products, but he has controlled the strength of this ability. It is not so overbearing. It can be said that the effect has been weakened to less than 5% compared to Deadpool. Although it is impossible to rely on this gene ability to fight cancer and reach a balanced state like Deadpool. But for ordinary people, this is enough. Because it is safer, it can be used as a buffer for AIDS and cancer. Maybe through active treatment, the body's immune system can be rebuilt. With this drug, there is a 20% chance of such a chance. You must know that before, the only thing patients with stage 3 cancer and AIDS could do was to delay death, and there was no possibility of complete cure. Now there is suddenly a 20% chance of reconstructing the immune system and restoring health. This means that 1 out of every 5 stage 3 cancer patients will have the opportunity to survive and recover. This is something that is enough to shock the entire medical world. In addition to this drug, there is also an X-gene drug that controls the balance of genes and chemical components in the body. This kind of medicine does not have the ability to completely cure the disease, nor is it a panacea. But it is a top-grade auxiliary medicine. With their help, doctors can be more relaxed when treating patients. While the whole world was shocked, in a hospital specializing in tumor treatment outside Boston, a man who wrapped himself tightly was standing in front of the cashier's counter. Mr. Wilson, do you have to pay so much this month? You have already voluntarily borne the treatment costs of 30 cancer patients. Some of them are now in the 3rd stage. Although I shouldn't say this, the cost of the 3rd stage is very high. The nurse in charge of the billing smiled. Mr. Wilson, who wrapped himself tightly, nodded and said in a low and hoarse voice, "Yes, isn't there a legendary new drug that can assist in treatment now? 1 in 5 chances is worth a try. Even if it costs more money. I support the patients lying here. They are all good people and they deserve this treatment." Mr. Wilson didn't say much nonsense. He directly transferred $1 million to the bank account. In a tumor center in New York, Tom, who was suffering from the disease, was lying on the hospital bed. When his wife and daughter came to see him today, they brought him good news. The Center for Regenerative Medicine is going to launch a new drug in cooperation with Tuvalu. It will be very helpful for your condition. His 5-year-old daughter Sally jumped to his bedside and said naively, "Will Dad get better soon? Can you come home and watch My Little Pony with me?" Tom wanted to respond, but chemotherapy and radiotherapy had almost taken away his strength. He could only say weakly, "This drug is very expensive. We may not have the money to pay for it, and I can't waste everyone's kindness anymore." Tom's wife took a deep breath. "Tom, the church members want to help you. Just like you helped them before. You are the best pastor in our community. You have done so many good deeds, and God should see it. The church members will find a way to raise funds for you." Tom sighed weakly. The atmosphere was silent. Until a courier delivered a registered letter. The sender on the letter had only one name, Mr. Wilson, the good man. And in the envelope was a bearer cash check for $250,000 and a note. The note read, "May all kind-hearted people in the world be treated gently by the world." Chapter 978, The Master of Imitation in Deadpool. The cooperation between Harry Osborn's Center for Regenerative Medicine and Tuvalu has set off a bigger storm than the unification of the beauty industry. Because they announced that the new drug to be put into experimental production is a drug that can help people rebuild their immune systems. Compared with external things such as losing weight and becoming beautiful, humans are more concerned about how long they can live. Especially patients with stage 3 cancer and late-stage AIDS. Countless people seek medical treatment and medicine just to treat this disease. At the entrance of the cancer hospital, there are always some experts who sell ancestral secret recipes, and various masters with Kigan always advertise that they have various methods to treat diseases. This kind of medical fraud, especially the fraudsters who want to squeeze the last penny of money from dying people, should be regarded as the most hateful group of people in the world. And there are such people in all countries in the world. For money, they can tell all kinds of lies, give patients all kinds of hope, and finally push these patients who put their last hope on them into hell step by step. These people have no guilt for what they have done. In China, there are Kagan masters who seek welfare for the majority of patients. In the United States, there are also various witch doctors derived from Mayan civilization and Indian mythology who can heal various terminal illnesses through spiritualism. For example, somewhere in Arizona, a witch doctor named Majima is showing his magical powers. In a closed room, steam filled the air. Majima, dressed as a Mayan wizard, was sitting on a platform. He twisted his body in a mysterious way and muttered, "Gods from ancient times, listen to my words." At first, he was still reciting some normal words, but the tone became more and more strange as time went on. It was as if the witch doctor and the gods were communicating with each other. In the entire closed room, the steam filled the air and the temperature was very high. Many cancer patients endured the high temperature and listened to Majima's prayers. Most of them were stage 3 cancer patients, basically people who had no hope of being cured in the hospital but did not want to die. Some people did not want to die themselves, and some people did not want to die simply for their families. They spent tens of thousands of dollars to participate in this so-called Mayan spiritual therapy course when they were desperate. The whole course of treatment lasted for 7 days, and there were many inhuman tortures for the patients during the process. For example, the sauna steaming was one of them. It was unknown which pervert came up with the idea of letting patients with stage 3 cancer stay in the sauna room and endure the high temperature. And it was clearly written in the course of treatment that the psychic communication would only work if the whole 7-day course of treatment was completed. And it was obvious that the physical strength of patients with stage 3 cancer generally decreased significantly. They simply did not have much strength to support the completion of this course of treatment. People kept fainting in the sauna room, but Majima seemed to have really communicated with the gods. He turned a blind eye to those who fell down and was still mumbling. Hanks, who was suffering in the sauna room, was still gritting his teeth and persisting. He didn't know what he was persisting, but he was sure that he didn't want to die. He still had a wife and children. What would happen to them if he died? Radiotherapy and chemotherapy cannot cure cancer, they just delay the spread of cancer cells and let oneself live longer in pain. In fact, living like this is more terrible and painful than death. And just when Hanks and several other patients were still gritting their teeth and persisting, bang! The door of the sauna room was kicked open roughly, and cold air instantly rushed into the hot room, making the air in the whole room blurry. A guy in a red and black tights strode in and dragged Majima, who was pretending to be a ghost, off the stage. Aha! Look what I found, a clown in disguise. Guess what he is performing? I guess it should be role-playing. SHIELD agent Deadpool teased Majima's head with his pistol. Am I right? Great wizard. Although Deadpool said this in a slick and frivolous tone, the cold touch of the muzzle of the gun still made Majima wake up instantly. He didn't dare to pretend to be a ghost now. He shouted, Don't shoot. Take whatever you want." He regarded Deadpool, who came to disrupt the situation, as a robber. After hearing what Majima said, Deadpool dragged him out by the hair and said, "Really? Then I think you're pretty good. My garden just needs a beautiful decoration." Ignoring Majima's screams, Deadpool dragged him out. Before leaving, he said to the patients in the sauna room, "Why are you still staying here like an idiot? Are you going to steam them all into Chinatown buns?" After finishing a day's work, Taskmaster was drinking a little wine in the bar inside SHIELD to pass the time. He liked his job at SHIELD and taught the new agents some knowledge, including grappling and fighting, the use of various vehicles, and various hot and cold weapons. Taskmaster is a very talented person with a super muscle memory. After seeing Captain Rogers' self-created SHIELD fighting technique, he could quickly imitate it. The salary is good, the treatment is also good, and the key is that this is still a serious job. Taskmaster thinks he can retire at SHIELD. Moreover, the agents of SHIELD, or all the agents trained by him, still respect him. Because he is indeed a good teacher. For example, now, a passing agent greeted him and greeted the bartender to charge the wine money of the master of Taskmaster to himself. Compared with the courtesy received by the master of Taskmaster and SHIELD, his friend Deadpool is not so popular. When Deadpool walked into the bar, other agents avoided him intentionally or unintentionally. Because of Hawkeye's problem, many people in SHIELD don't like him. But due to the problem of public opinion, after all, when Deadpool discredited SHIELD, Public opinion was one-sidedly condemning S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to accept him like swallowing a pile of shit. But he came in, and arranged him as a member of the Avengers, and used him as a signboard. But everything ends here. Those who should be hated are still hated, and no one will have a better relationship with him just because he becomes a colleague. Even the bartender who had been chatting with Taskmaster walked away when he saw Deadpool sitting next to Taskmaster. He didn't come over until Deadpool ordered a martini. But after pouring the martini, the bartender left again. He didn't want to stay with Deadpool any longer. Taskmaster took a sip of Chivas in his glass. "You're back? Did you have fun?" Deadpool leaned against the bar, except for the fact that a bunch of idiots who pin their hopes on charlatans are infuriating. "Everything is fine. I heard you got 15 million. Taskmaster asked calmly. "Yeah. It's a lot of money indeed." Deadpool didn't hide this fact. "With that much money, I can probably buy a nice mansion." The Master of Imitation glanced at Deadpool. "So where's the mansion?" "It's left in Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas." Deadpool said carelessly, "I suspect they rigged the game. I can never get the points I want." The Master of Imitation sighed. "Wade, aren't you tired of living like this?" Deadpool waved his hand. "When you become immortal like me, you will understand what lightness means." There was something else in Deadpool's words. Taskmaster shook his head. He finished the rest of Chivas Regal and patted Deadpool on the shoulder. "Let's get some more money. Tommy, Jimmy and the children of our former comrades are waiting to pay for tuition and summer camp." Deadpool said in a very frustrated tone, "Oh my god. Why should we bear the alimony of these little brats and the wives or lovers of those dead guys? And we have to raise these little brats until they are 18 years old." Taskmaster waved at Deadpool before leaving the bar. "Don't forget, it was you who proposed the mutual assistance agreement. Whoever of us is still alive in the mercenary career has the obligation to support the children and wives of our comrades. Whoever proposed it will be responsible to the end. Don't talk nonsense. If the 15 million is spent in Las Vegas, go to Atlantic City to win it back." Taskmaster stepped out of the bar. Deadpool drank a martini. Although the bar was noisy, he was alone. P.S. The story about cancer patients being deceived is very real. I have relatives in my family who are like this. He is a very shrewd elder. He is the only one who schemes against others in his life. No one can outsmart him. But when life reaches that stage, all wisdom is no longer important. Even the people around him see through it but don't say it. Chapter 979, The Glorious Revolution. The flame of change has begun to burn. When the X-Beauty potion began to spread to all parts of the world under the promotion of Shuguang technology. When Tony Stark used the channels of those businessmen to start delivering these products to all parts of the world. When the American people began to drive their own cars across the highway to the cities where the potion was sold. When the black market began to buy the X-Beauty potion, which was not yet produced at a high price and the price was constantly driven up. The change of the world has begun. Harry Osborn's Regenerative Medicine Center also began to add fuel to the flame of change. Almost at the same time, regenerative medicine centers around the world simultaneously released the Immune System Reconstruction Plan, extracted from Deadpool. The plan aims to help various terminally ill patients reactivate their own immune systems. Because no matter how good the medicine is, it is not as good as the antibodies that the human body can produce. By strengthening the ability of the immune system to fight terminal illnesses, many people have seen a ray of light in the darkness. This is a premeditated plan. Now someone finally woke up. Katie's so-called X-Beauty potion during the live broadcast was a completely premeditated temptation. But many people underestimated it. Because the first potion released by Tuvalu was the X-Rebirth potion, a potion that can completely hide the X gene. Everyone thought Katie was digging her own grave. She won the favor of many people with her innocence, and even the anti-mutant organization accelerated the sale of this potion. They felt that the dawn of victory had arrived, but who was the real winner? If you want to take something in advance, you must give it first. When Li Ji said this, he had a winner's smile on his face. If you want to get something, you must pay it first. Just like fishing, you need to put bait. X-Rebirth potion, it sounds stupid. Let everyone block the X gene. But this smoke bomb is well used. Li Ji was a little complacent. The other bigwigs in the Illuminati couldn't stand it, but Doom, who is attending the Illuminati meeting for the first time, looked at Li Ji with interest. Doom contributed a lot to this mutant potion incident. It can be said that if it weren't for his repeated instigation, things would not have been so smooth at all. Many people hate Doom, but they can't get rid of Doom. Doom also enjoyed the fact that the other party hated him but couldn't kill him. Because Doom, who had full taunting skills, attracted a lot of firepower for the whole plan, he has now officially become a member of the Illuminati. I'm curious, why do you always firmly support mutants? Doom raised his question after listening to Li Ji's words. Doom looked at Professor Charles and said that he was not a mutant discriminator. Of course, if I hate someone, it has nothing to do with whether he is a mutant. I will hate and kill those who should be hated and killed, and I will not let them off or increase the punishment because of whether they are mutants. I'm just curious, why do you, Nightcrawler, have to stand firmly on the side of mutants? Doom was really curious, do you really think mutants are the future of mankind? If this question is asked to Magneto will definitely say unswervingly, yes, it must be. If this question is asked to Professor X, Professor Charles may say modestly, I never dare to make such an assertion. But Professor X is afraid that he will have the same answer as Magneto in his heart. After becoming a member of the Illuminati, especially after entering the Venus base, Doom became more and more curious about Nightcrawler. Is Nightcrawler strong? Not bad, he is considered a first-class hero. Anyway, he is definitely not a match for Banner and Thor in a head-on confrontation. It is probably at the level of Iron Man. Is he smart and has extraordinary wisdom? Not bad, the Illuminati has Dr. Hank, Professor Charles Dr. Banner, Tony Stark, and now there's Doom himself, Dr. Doom. It can be said that the most outstanding group of scientists in the world have gathered together. Expecting Nightcrawler Li Ji to be smarter than this group of people? Difficult. But why did such a person control the highest force of the entire Illuminati? After Doom arrived at the Venus base, he was shocked by the scale of the base. Tony Stark invested all the profits that the entire Dawn technology could use, without hindering the company's development, into the construction of the Venus base. Coupled with the exploitation of Venus resources, especially after the legendary blacksmith became the #1 forger of the Illuminati, the construction of the entire base was like a cheat. A legendary blacksmith, Magneto, is comparable to 1,000 engineering machinery mechas. The Venus base has begun to have the feeling of human colonization of alien planets in those Hollywood science fiction movies. Especially in the docks within the base, there are densely packed space warships of various colors. And this is only a part of the entire Venus fleet. More warships have begun to turn on the stealth mode in the universe to patrol the entire solar system. For the first time, Doom was really surprised that this powerful force that made the entire Earth civilization despair was actually in the hands of Nightwalker. He has the full command and ability to give orders to the entire fleet. Listen, it's not Iron Man, nor Captain America, nor any smart person here. It's a Nightwalker who looks crazy sometimes. If Li Ji wants, he can let the Venus fleet go out immediately and instantly raise any country on the Earth. And it's a crushing way. So Doom is very curious about what kind of ability Nightwalker has that makes everyone so convinced of him. In response to Doom's question about why he supports mutants, Li Ji shrugged. In fact, it was not me who made this choice at the beginning. It was a guy who sold fake medicine who forced me to make this choice. If I don't do this, it will cause greater conflicts and more casualties. He wants to rely on violence to change the dynasty. But this is hard for me to accept. Li Ji said seriously. And when I started trying to do this, I began to realize another thing. Li Ji stood in the middle of the conference room and said to Friday, the AI of the Venus base, help me project the universe and the stars. The ceiling of the entire conference room immediately turned into the vast universe outside, with stars twinkling here. When we humans begin to step into space, will we still be us? Or will humans still be humans? In the cosmic age, everything about us will change. We will become longer lived, stronger, and more intelligent. Li Ji looked at Doom and looked him straight in the eyes. When we start to change, just like the evolution of humans, this may be a small fork in the evolutionary road. Right or wrong? Who knows? Li Ji smiled and shook his head. But someone has to try, right? Why develop the X rebirth potion? Actually, Dr. Doom, do you know who has the most effective X rebirth potion in the world? Li Ji asked. And Doom heard the hidden meaning in Li Ji's words. What do you mean? Everyone here knows. Dr. Hank has developed a potion that can truly and thoroughly hide the X gene and even make it inactive. It was extracted from an X ability user called Leech Virus. And this potion is in my hand. Li Ji looked at Doom, his eyes as sharp as a knife. We have started a glorious revolution with various methods, and the great era of mutants may be coming. But like all changes, this is risky. When the wheel of history derails and heads in the worst direction, someone needs to stand up and be the mantis trying to stop the chariot. Li Ji's tone was full of determination, his fists clenched, and a destructive purple thunder shot out from his fingertips, giving people a stronger feeling than ever before. Even a faint flash of lightning can feel the surging destructive force, just like the original power of destruction and silence in the universe. Thor looked at Li Ji in surprise. Glorious revolution, great era. When we open this era, we need to be prepared. Glory will deteriorate, greatness will decay. When the world needs it, I will personally destroy this era. Doom's heart suddenly shuddered. When he looked at Li Ji's resolute, calm and emotionless face, he suddenly understood why the Illuminati chose to believe him. Entrust the ultimate force to this man. He dared to use his whims and fantastic ideas to form alliances to open a golden age, but he could also completely destroy it when needed. Walking in the darkness, but holding the flame that leads to the light of this world. There is a deepness like the sea in the hippie smile and glib talk. Without flowers and applause, Nightwalker Li Ji is walking a path that no one else has walked. He walks in the most dangerous places in the world, but his eyes and heart are full of warmth and love. He wears heavy armor, but he also has fatal weaknesses. Remove the hero's disguise and take off the heavy armor. What Doom can see is not an extremely powerful superhero, but a real person. He is so pure. He lives in this world, unique. P.S. I took the motorcycle driver's license test yesterday, so I didn't update it yesterday afternoon. I went to get my driver's license this morning, so the update was late. But I'm still very happy, because I can finally be a writer. But it's a pity that I can't afford BMW, KTM, Ducati. In fact, I can't even afford imported Honda, Kawasaki, and Yamaha. I can only buy a domestic small road to ride. It's a pity that the weather is cold. It's already February. I hope it will get warmer soon. Chapter 980. Do you want to be an astronaut? When the issue of mutants and the expansion of the application of X genes on Earth were undergoing a smokeless revolution, another revolution was quietly beginning outside the atmosphere. Kurno, who came from Ukraine and Eastern Europe, never thought that he would be able to enter space one day. He was just a child of a fruit farmer in Ukraine. If you ask him about his entire life before his 18th birthday, the most glorious moment was probably when he caught a super big fish when he was a child, and then he showed off to his classmates at school for more than half a month. Apart from that, his life was unremarkable and there was nothing to be proud of. In fact, the big fish he caught was nothing to be proud of, and it was not particularly outstanding compared to real anglers. Looking back at the first half of his life, Kurno could not even find much worth remembering. No, it should be said that there were things worth remembering, but no memory was particularly worth remembering. Only on his 18th birthday, his second brother, who is an apprentice in a bakery in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, called and told the family about the recruitment of workers for the Eastern European super high-speed railway. In order to get the high salary of $300 a month in the advertisement, Kurno resolutely embarked on the train to Kiev. On the train, he met Katyusha, a graduate of Kiev University. If the first half of Kurno's life was simple and plain like a black and white silent film, then since meeting Katyusha, Kurno felt that he had seen a different color in his life. Katyusha has extraordinary ideals and pursuits. She has tied personal values and social contributions together. When she seeks to realize her personal ideals, she can also help the country and the people to progress together. So she went back to her hometown to help local farmers improve their planting methods at the beginning. After hearing about the super high-speed railway plan, Katyusha understood the extraordinary significance of this railway for more people. So she joined this change, hoping to contribute her own strength. When they first met on the train, Kurno was attracted by this extremely charming woman. He never knew that life could be lived like this. To be honest, Kurno has not read many books. He has lived in the closed countryside of Ukraine for a long time, and his knowledge is very shallow. But when Katyusha appeared in his life, everything began to be different. Katyusha conveyed a lot of ideas to him and shared a lot of her books with Kurno. There are literary masterpieces of the former Soviet Union, and there are also fashionable novels of the time. Katyusha has a rich imagination, while Kurno is a blank sheet of paper who knows nothing. Katyusha likes Kurno's simple feeling, which is something that many people today do not have. So Katyusha always likes to confide in him and share her views. Especially after Kurno reads the book Katyusha lent him, Katyusha always likes to discuss the stories in it with him. The two will feel mutual appreciation because of the same views, and sometimes quarrel because of differences in opinions. But in this back and forth, the two young hearts slowly get closer. Last Christmas, Katyusha bought a very beautiful windbreaker for Kurno from New York, and Kurno kept it and was reluctant to wear it. He is a little conflicted about Katyusha's feelings, because there is always a knot in his heart. Katyusha is a graduate of Kiev University and an assistant engineer. And what about himself? Just an ordinary road construction worker. Although it is said that he will be assessed and trained after arriving at the construction site. The higher-ups thought he was good at driving mechas, so they made him a mecha pilot, operating the steel mechas made by the Stark Group for engineering. Although it sounds high-end, you can brag to others and say I use the same mecha as Tony Stark, if Tony also wants to build roads. But in the end, I am just a road worker. There is an invisible but real wall between me and Katyusha. Katyusha is very beautiful and smart. Many engineers in their 20s and early 30s are around her, trying to win her favor. Kurno feels that compared with these people, his conditions are too poor. His parents are just farmers in the countryside, his eldest brother was a soldier and is now working as a farmer at home after retiring, his second brother is an apprentice in a bakery, and it will take many years for him to become a master baker. He is just a worker. With such background conditions, how dare Kurno pursue Katyusha? However, just as Kurno did not expect that he would meet Katyusha on the train and then start a journey that changed his life, he also did not expect that his life would experience another huge turning point. I still remember that Katyusha came to him with a gentle scholar. Kurno knew this scholar and had seen him on TV. His name was Bruce Banner. He walked up to him with a pleasant face and said to him, "Young man, do you want to go to heaven?" Kurno wanted to answer, "I am still young and don't want to die." But he felt that Dr. Banner was not a guy who would get angry and kill people if he disagreed with him, so the heaven he said should have another meaning. Katyusha secretly kicked Kurno, and the look in her eyes revealed that she wanted Kurno to agree to it no matter what it was. If Dr. Banner wanted to help Kurno, then it would be a great opportunity. But Kurno did not react immediately. Dr. Banner smiled and said, "When I say heaven, I mean entering the universe. Kurno, are you interested in working in the universe?" Kurno was surprised. "Entering the universe? But I'm not an astronaut." Dr. Banner still smiled and said, "If you nod, then from the next moment, you will be one." So in a daze, Kurno became an astronaut. At least he thought that those who entered the space were astronauts, otherwise what should they be called? And he didn't know what talent he had that Dr. Banner saw in him, and he actually wanted to be an astronaut himself. Kurno felt like he was dreaming. But in this unrealistic dream, he caught a key point. If he became an astronaut, would the distance between him and Katyusha be shortened? It should be. Astronauts and engineers sound like a perfect match. The distance from the rural countryside to Kiev is 300 kilometers. The distance from Kiev to the road construction site in Eastern Europe is 1,000 kilometers, and the distance from the road construction site to the rocket launch site is 5,000 kilometers. Now, the Ark spacecraft that Kurno was riding on landed on the moon. From here, the distance to the Earth is 384,000 kilometers. But what is he doing here? Kurno is still unclear. Chapter 981. Aren't we here to mine? Kurno had no idea why he came to the moon. It seemed that his mind began to go blank after he heard that he could become an astronaut. He kept thinking, I can finally get close to Katyusha. So when the Ark spacecraft carried him and other passengers to the moon, he was still confused. This time, the Ark spacecraft landed on the lunar base with 50 members including Kurno. This base was built by Dr. Richards and his 4 companions when they went there. As the first batch of pioneers, they built a place for later generations to live on the moon. Kurno stood in the spacecraft wearing a special spacesuit and looked at the moon outside the window. The land outside was grayish-white, and the craters in the distance were only seen in textbooks. 1/6 of the gravity of the Earth makes people feel like they are floating in the air. The Earth has become a blue gem in the distance, emitting its own brilliance in the dark universe. When Kurno was still living on the Earth, he felt that the land under his feet was the whole world. In fact, many people firmly hold the same idea as Kurno. When Kurno stepped into space, he broke through the Earth's atmosphere and gradually moved away from the Earth's gravity, but he didn't get rid of it. Colonel looked at the vast sky full of stars, and for the first time he had a feeling that the Earth is so small. On the moon, there is no atmosphere to block it, and no light pollution to interfere. Standing on the moon and looking at the stars in the universe has a particularly clear feeling. If standing on the Earth to look at the universe is like looking at the world through a glass, then when you come to the moon, the whole universe is as clear as if it has been washed by water. Colonel was a little fascinated. He had been sitting by the window of the spacecraft until someone patted him from behind and said, "Have you seen enough? Hurry up. Everyone put on your spacesuits and enter the base for roll call." It was not until this time that Colonel came back to his senses. He withdrew from the awe of the vast universe for the first time. He quickly tidied his clothes, put on his helmet, and followed the large group into the moon base. Welcome everyone. On the stage, a person who looked a bit like Captain America Steve Rogers gave a welcome speech. But Colonel could clearly tell that he was not Rogers. Because he was not as tall as Captain Rogers, nor as strong as Captain Rogers. Oh, right. I should have seen this person when I watched the news before. He seemed to be one of the 4 founders of the moon base, Jonathan Stone. He and his sister Susan, Dr. Richards, and Dr. Ben built this place together. Jonathan, standing on the stage, welcomed the people who came here with a smile on his face. "Welcome everyone, you are fortunate to be the first group of humans to arrive at the moon base besides our team. Everyone here is carefully selected. Everyone has extraordinary abilities. There are elites from NASA." 6 young men who look very determined saluted Jonathan. "There are elites from China's aerospace." 4 men who are obviously yellow also saluted Jonathan. Jonathan introduced them one by one, and he returned the salutes to those who saluted him. All the people who come here are the elites among the elites. They include the United States, China, the European Union, Russia, space agencies, air forces, navies, and civilian talents of various countries. Jonathan's tone was a little surprised when he mentioned the word civilian. When the crowd in the audience heard the word civilian, there was a slight commotion. Jonathan had to shout, "Quiet." The people in the audience were all disciplined troops who followed orders, and Jonathan was also an ace pilot from the U.S. Air Force. So when he shouted this sentence with great momentum, the scene quickly quieted down. But everyone was still looking for who the civilian talent was among this group of people. In fact, it was obvious that although there was no communication before, Colonel's style and habits were obviously different from others when he was mixed in a group of disciplined troops. Even the Russian soldiers who were famous for their rough style had a hint of military flavor in their actions, which was a sense of alertness and seriousness. Colonel exuded a sense of looseness that belonged to ordinary civilians. This feeling of being out of state was initially thought to be excitement by others, because almost everyone was excited after being summoned by Director Rogers of the SWOR. Because their lives will start a different journey. They will be the founders of an era. Even if they have strong psychological qualities, there are still people who can't sleep all night, looking forward to the agreed date coming soon. When the Ark rushed out of the Earth and flew into the universe, everyone was excited. Although many of them are astronauts from various space agencies. But it's hard to say about astronauts. Maybe you will never have a chance to go to the sky even if you prepare for it all your life. So when you see the Earth getting smaller and the moon getting bigger, everyone is very excited, and no one noticed Colonel at all. Now standing in the base on the moon, although everyone is still very excited, their mood gradually began to calm down. At this time, Colonel is very conspicuous. Jonathan also noticed Colonel, and Colonel himself found that he seemed to be a little eye-catching. It was only later that he realized that he seemed to have mixed into a different team. He could feel that many people were looking at him with their eyes, and that kind of eyes was a kind of suspicion. Colonel is not very tall and strong. At most he can only be said to be relatively strong. He didn't look like a great scholar or scientist when he was young. What was he doing here? Report. The Russian astronaut raised his hand to indicate that he had something to say. Jonathan nodded. Go ahead. I don't think the business we are going to do is suitable for a civilian, especially a civilian who has not received any training. The Russian astronaut said bluntly, I don't want to say this, but someone's presence is likely to be the weakest and most dangerous existence in our team. We should let him go back now. He may not even know why we are here. The Russian astronaut's words were very direct, without any beating around the bush. Everyone seemed to be watching the fun, and several Chinese astronauts whispered to each other secretly. After hearing the question from the Russian astronaut, Jonathan raised his eyebrows, looked at the roster, and asked to Colonel, So, Colonel, do you agree with this? Do you know why we are here? Colonel was a little confused, and he said hesitantly, well, what? Aren't we here to mine on the moon? As soon as these words came out, the scene instantly became quiet. Chapter 982, It's not mining, it's war. Aren't we here to mine on the moon? Colonel said as a matter of course, and he didn't think there was anything wrong with what he said. In fact, when he went to the universe, Dr. Banner did not fully tell Colonel what he was going to do. Dr. Banner just smiled and said, go with confidence, the job there can show your talents. Of course, if you feel that you can't adapt after you go, you can also ask to come back, no need to force it. Because of Dr. Banner's guarantee, Colonel and Katyusha didn't think that this job would be a particularly outrageous job. And what did Dr. Banner say about showing your strengths? Colonel and Katyusha got together to analyze for a long time, and both thought that Colonel's greatest strength was operating mecha. At the beginning of the recruitment selection, Colonel showed amazing talent when he tried to use the exoskeleton for the first time. His body coordination is too good. Even wearing an exoskeleton, he still shows amazing balance and flexibility. This talent continued in the subsequent training of engineering mecha. The Iron Man armor used by Tony Stark is a very advanced thing. This advancement is not only reflected in the manufacturing process but also in the operation. Everyone knows that it is difficult to be a pilot, not only because the physical fitness requirements of pilots are extremely high, but also modern aircraft are becoming more and more complex, with more and more switches and more things to understand. Unlike the propeller aircraft in the early years, the instrument panel in the cockpit is very simple. The flight control system of modern aircraft is so complicated that it is a headache. And the same is true for Tony's Iron Man armor. In fact, operating the Iron Man armor is a very tedious thing. It is very simple to see Tony Stark operate the Iron Man armor, because he has handed over many details to Jarvis to handle on his behalf. The real mass-produced Iron Man armor will not have such a powerful intelligent AI. Without this super-intelligent AI intelligence equipped with a general intelligent control system, the operation of the Iron Man armor must be simplified, especially the various fine-tuning parameters need to be adjusted to the extent that the human brain can react instantly. But even if it is simplified, operating the Iron Man armor is still not a simple job. Even the non-combat engineering armor is very complicated. And Colonel's talent is also demonstrated here. He seemed to be born with a talent for operating the Iron Man armor. He remembered many things completely after learning them once, and there was no need to learn them a second time. Sometimes people's talents are very strange. For example, some people are particularly good at circuit maintenance and learn circuit knowledge very quickly. But this person is very average in other jobs. Colonel is such a person. He has a high talent for mecha operation, but he is very average in other aspects. So after analysis, Colonel and Katyusha both thought that maybe Dr. Banner saw Colonel's talent in this aspect and wanted him to enter the universe to do engineering. Now there are two major engineering projects in the universe. One is the construction of the Starport Sky City. This part of the work has been contracted to the Stark Group, and Tony's intelligent control unmanned mecha and some manually controlled mecha are doing this. Like the construction of the Starport, the mining of helium-3 ore on the moon is another major project in the universe. These two projects are the most likely places where Colonel's skills will be used. He may become a construction engineer in space. Or a space migrant worker. So when the Ark spacecraft stopped on the moon, Colonel thought, are they really here to mine on the moon? But Colonel had been prepared for a long time, and he didn't think that mining helium-3 on the moon was a trivial matter. In fact, mining helium-3 on the moon is a very technical job. Because the moon is a very important planet for the Earth. In the solar system, the sun is the most important to the Earth. Without the sun, there would be no life on the Earth. The moon ranks second. If there is no moon as the satellite of the Earth, then even life will be born on the Earth. But the form of life born will probably not be the same as today's life. And it is such an important satellite that humans have to mine helium-3 ore on it. Humans need to be extremely careful not to destroy the structure of the moon. Colonel thinks that this group of people who came to the moon with him on the same spacecraft are actually the first batch of moon miners. Colonel is still very happy to contribute to the new energy of the Earth. So when Colonel said as a matter of course, aren't we mining on the moon? Colonel felt that there was no problem. But the scene fell into silence. After a while, it was as if Colonel had said a very rude curse word. The Russian astronaut was obviously angry. His bear-like face was almost touching Colonel's face. He shouted, "How did you get in? Who told you that we are here to mine on the moon? Is your dream to be a mine mule on the moon? Do you know the mission of the people here now?" The Russian astronaut was really angry. What are we doing on the moon if we don't mine? Or are we going to do welding work at the starport later? Colonel thought so. In fact, welding the starport is also fine. Jonathan on the stage was helpless. He didn't know how this person got into his team. And Jonathan couldn't see any extraordinary talent in Colonel. But as the current leader of the team, Jonathan had to separate the two of them before the Russian astronaut wanted to beat Colonel. He said to Colonel and the Russian astronaut on the stage, "Enough, calm down. Don't let me put you in solitary confinement on the first day." Jonathan's words worked. The Russian astronaut glared at Colonel and stepped back. Jonathan also looked at Colonel and said, "Colonel, I think you probably have some misunderstandings. I don't know how you got into this team, but you may not understand. We are not here to mine or build a starport or something. Colonel, we will be the first space army in human history. The ones standing here now are the seeds of the entire space army. We belong to the SWIRD, and we are here to complete our training and assembly. If you figure out your nature and think you may have made a mistake, I can let you return to Earth." Jonathan looked at Colonel and said this. The Russian astronaut who had retreated before also whispered, "If you like mining, go back to Earth and dig enough." Now the development of things has exceeded Colonel's imagination. He is not here to mine on the moon, but to be a space army? What and what? Jonathan didn't say anything, and the Russian astronaut did seem a little unhappy with Colonel. He kept provoking Colonel. "This is a place where the elite of the elite should stay. What have you done before? Mining, road construction, or working in a factory? This is not a place you should stay. I don't know whose back door you took, but you should go back now." The Russian astronaut was provoking, but no one else in the team stopped him. Even Jonathan didn't speak to stop him. Because if Colonel can't even handle this kind of problem, he should go back to Earth. Colonel froze there for a while, not knowing how to deal with himself. And at this moment, a voice came, "Why don't you show your skills? I heard from Dr. Banner that you have extraordinary skills, so I made an exception and let you join this team." The sound of footsteps came with great rhythm. A tall and mighty man walked in from another entrance of the venue. He said, "I heard that your level of driving mecha is top-notch, so let us see it now." Chapter 983. The game begins. The man who strode in was tall and mighty, with a resolute face. He looked like a standard tough guy at first glance, and as he entered, the entire venue instantly became quiet. Even the Russian astronaut who had been provoking Colonel immediately stood at attention with his chest and abdomen straightened. Swish, without anyone giving a command, everyone present saluted him. Uniformly, as if they had rehearsed it in advance. Even Colonel saluted with everyone for no reason. Because Colonel knew the man who walked into the venue now, that was the famous Captain America, Steve Rogers. Oh, no. Now someone on the internet has proposed to change his name to Captain Earth, and has posted a vote online. At present, more than 75% of netizens think that the nickname Captain America is too petty. It is completely unworthy of Captain Rogers' current identity. Captain Earth is the heroic nickname that Captain Rogers should use now. Everyone should call Rogers, Captain Rogers in the future. Captain Rogers strode in from outside and finally stopped between Colonel and the Russian astronaut. He looked at the two and said, "Colonel, why don't you show your ability? Your recommender has assured me that you have outstanding talent." Captain Rogers said this to Colonel, and Colonel was a little overwhelmed when he saw Captain Rogers for the first time. He didn't know how to answer Captain Rogers' words. He hesitated for a long time before saying, "I'm really not here to mine." Haha. Captain Rogers smiled without disguising, not the kind of sarcastic smile. It was as if he was really amused by Colonel. "Young man, it seems that Dr. Banner didn't make it clear to you. He recommended you to me for the purpose of our coming here. He told me that you have extraordinary talent in mecha driving. He is the best mecha pilot he has ever seen except Tony Stark. He thinks your talents should not be buried. So he strongly recommended you to come here. Why don't you show it? Your talent." Captain Rogers looked at Colonel very seriously. Colonel opened his mouth slightly, not knowing how to respond. In fact, the SWORD is forming a space force for the Earth Federation. Just like the meeting in the Illuminati. The purpose of the super fleet of the Venus base is to escort humans at the most vulnerable moment when they step out of the universe, rather than always existing as a guardian. The universe is vast and magnificent, but it is also full of various dangers. No one can guarantee anyone's eternal peace. When Li Ji wanted to push humans into the space age and wanted to make drastic reforms to the world, he had a long talk with Master Gu Yi. At that time, Master Ancient One was sitting cross-legged on the stage meditating, while Li Ji was standing below the stage. Li Ji spoke first. Master Ancient One, do you agree with my approach? What approach? Ancient One did not open his eyes. The advancement and transformation of this world. I don't know whether everything I did is right or wrong, good or bad, mutants or inhumans. Or is it to promote mankind into space and new energy reform? Li Ji was not showing off, he was indeed a little entangled in his heart. If there was anyone on earth who was worthy of Li Ji opening his heart and revealing his inner uneasiness, it was only Master Ancient One. As the Supreme Mage, he protected the earth for 500 years, and for a long time he served as the protector of mankind. Ancient One opened his eyes. What is good and what is bad? Huh? Li Ji didn't quite understand what Ancient One was saying. I have lived for a long time. Master Gu Yi said calmly, when I was a child, China was still in the late Yuan dynasty. The rulers of the Yuan dynasty imposed heavy taxes and levied the heavy taxes, and the people were living in misery. Then the anti-Yuan war began. My parents took me to flee from Sichuan and Chongqing to the plateau. Then the anti-Yuan war and the Ming dynasty's unification war lasted for decades. Do you think war is good? Master Gu Yi looked at Li Ji seriously. Li Ji shook his head. War is certainly not a good thing. Every time there will be rivers of blood. Yes, war will kill many people. It is not a good thing. But some wars must break out, just like the anti-Yuan war. Sometimes destruction is for better construction. But I didn't understand these at the time, so after I entered Kamartaki to study magic and gained power, I have been trying to use my personal power to reverse these bad things. Master Gu Yi said seriously. When I was young, I met the rulers of the Ming dynasty and wanted to spread my ideas to them. But they were only interested in immortality. They worshipped me and thought I was an immortal from heaven. Although I do know where the so-called heaven is, it is not as friendly as in Chinese legends. Gu Yi shook his head as if he didn't want to comment on heaven. He continued, people always ignore many more important things because of their own selfish desires. Some wars break out because of the selfish desires of some people. I tried to use my power to force the two sides of the war to stop fighting. However, I can use my power to stop their open war, but I can't extinguish the hatred burning in their hearts. Using power to suppress power is nothing more than applying pressure to a spring. When your power relaxes a little, the spring will return all the pressure you applied. So I finally gave up mediating secular struggles, because I found that no matter how strong my power was, I couldn't make so many people around the world put down their selfish desires. Harmony and love are never given to others by force. Master Gu Yi stood up. You have done a lot of things I wanted to do but couldn't do. This has nothing to do with the strength of power. There is no utopia in this world. My power only allows me to be the guardian of the earth. I can protect this home, but I can't do anything to advance the world's progress. So is it good or bad? Who can make a conclusion now? Let's go and see. This world is full of unknowns. It's just that the further humans explore, the weaker the protection I can provide. Humans should rely on their own hands to protect themselves. So whether it's the Venus fleet or Master Gu Yi, these are just special products of a stage. No one is immortal and can never be given up. If humans want to go further in space, they need to rely on their own hands and feet to move forward. And now, Kurno is standing on the surface of the moon in steel armor, and he is still a little dizzy. Why did he agree to compete with the Russian astronauts? On the other side of the field, the Russian astronauts showed a disdainful smile to Kurno before putting on the heavy steel armor. Captain Rogers didn't seem to be in a hurry at all. He stood in the base and watched the video footage of the game through the surveillance video. Jonathan, who was selected by Captain Rogers as the first captain of the Space Force, stood beside Captain Rogers and said, "Are we really going to compete?" "Why not?" Captain Rogers said, "As a matter of course, we have to establish a completely new structure. In space combat, everyone is a beginner. No one should put on airs and think they are so great. Everything has to start all over again here. And now, the game in Kurno is about to begin. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, It means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 984, Instant Kill. The venue for the Kerno competition is a venue built inside a small crater. There is a natural semi-enclosed space here, which has been properly transformed by engineering robots. The bottom of the entire crater is relatively flat, and a steel wall has been erected around it. This was originally a platform for mecha operation teaching. Until today, Tony Stark has not announced his combat steel armor, and almost no official has used his armor. When the Xianjian Bureau planned to establish a space force, there were two options. One is the traditional space battleship route, using the Ark as a basis for transformation. Add armor, weapons and more powerful engines to become a primary space battleship. However, the firepower and sturdiness of such a battleship are a problem. Because the designer of the Ark was originally designed by Tony himself. At that time, Li Ji did not take out the drawings of the interstellar battleship for Tony to study and refer to. The Ark spacecraft, which relies entirely on personal design and exploration, is already a black technology-like spacecraft for the Earth. But for fighting in space? Sorry, a Viking-class battleship controlled by Li Ji can blow up 100 such battleships. In terms of design ideas, the Ark was not designed for combat from the beginning, and its maneuverability and armor strength are not enough. It's like a wooden fishing boat equipped with a 35mm caliber gun cannot pretend to be a coastal combat ship. A real armed speedboat can tear this simple combat ship apart. Tony Stark has just developed the Ark for less than 2 years. Although he has now built many real space battleships and figured out many of the tricks. But he can't spit out all the technology he has mastered in one breath. Because this is too strange, just like someone who just learned to make a bird system the day before yesterday can make a Vulcan cannon the next day. So although the new Space Army battleship has made many improvements, it is still within the scope that Earthlings can understand. It has not directly entered the level of the Venus fleet. And such a fleet is very strong for Earthlings, but it is far from enough for the Illuminati who really know what dangers the Earth will face now. Although the strength of the Venusian fleet is still gradually increasing, and Li Ji has contacted Black Bolt for the second time and reached a preliminary exchange of intentions. But the Earthlings still need to strengthen themselves a little more. So there is a second way, which is to develop a universal space mecha. At that time, Li Ji was excited and said, "Are we finally going to make a Gundam Ms.?" However, as soon as this statement was put forward, Tony refuted, "Would I design such a stupid thing?" So the Universal Steel Armor Ms.01, Space Guardian, armor derived from the Mk5 steel armor was designed. Now Tony's armor has been iterated to the stage of black gold nano armor, and has long abandoned the traditional solid metal stage of titanium alloy or titanium magnesium alloy. In terms of technological content and military strength, the black gold armor has completely left the traditional steel armor behind by several levels. Now Tony is no longer afraid that others will use his previously designed steel armor to do bad things. Because in this world he has a group of solid and trustworthy friends. There is a ruthless guy who will definitely help me to plug the possible loopholes. When the Space Army's warships can carry a group of such steel warriors, the combat effectiveness will become very objective. Because they are small and highly maneuverable, it is difficult to be captured and aimed in the vast universe, and the firepower is also very strong. And now Kerno is wearing a Ms.01, Space Guardian training armor. This is specially used for training these rookies. The way of the game is very simple. This kind of training armor has an energy bar setting. Both sides use professional training weapons, which will not really hurt the people in the armor. And through hitting, shooting and other methods to reduce the opponent's energy bar. When the value of the energy bar returns to 0, one party cannot move. That means the other party has been defeated. There is an intelligent counter inside each mecha to count the possible damage caused by the other party. This kind of competition is very direct, and it tests the operator's control over the mecha in all aspects. In fact, most of the people selected to participate in the establishment of the Space Army have been trained. Although none of them had ever touched a real Space Guardian armor, they had all done corresponding training with a LFI exoskeleton produced by the Osborne Group. Although this Ms.01 armor was designed by Tony, it was finally produced by the Osborne Group. So this kind of training should be of some use. Kurno's competition was simple and clear. Whoever was defeated first would lose. The Russian astronaut seemed to have a few friends. Several people who knew him were cheering for him outside the court. Zhukov. Kick this amateur's ass hard. This Russian astronaut was named after a famous commander in World War II. And many people seemed to be optimistic about Zhukov. Captain Rogers stood aside and did not stop these people. This situation is very common in the military. The military is a place where you make a living by your ability. People with ability deserve respect. Whether Kurno can integrate into this group depends on his own ability. In the court, Kurno took a deep breath. The original nervous feeling became unusually calm after wearing the armor. He had a feeling that he had never told anyone. When he put on the mecha for the first time, he felt a sense of stability. It was like being in the arms of his mother. This feeling was unusually warm and familiar. He didn't know why this cold armor could bring him such a warm feeling. Staying in the mecha, he felt that hundreds of millions of cells in his body were soaked. It seemed that they were supposed to be surrounded by heavy armor. He just adapted a little bit and it seemed that he knew how to operate this mecha completely. It was obviously the first time for him to touch this mecha, and he had only driven an engineering machinery mecha before. Although both were designed by Tony, the difference between the two was hard to calculate. Because both of them were rookies, this competition did not provide more and more complicated weapons and rules. The weapons were palm cannons and daggers hidden in the armor. Zhukov adjusted his state in the field. He was very good at operating the elf armor. That's why he stood out in the selection. But the performance of the MiZ-01 armor was much better than that of the elf armor. And because the place for this competition was the moon, Zhukov needed to be more careful. The gravity of the moon is only 1/6 of that of the Earth. Many tactical moves that can be done on the Earth will be deformed on the moon. The strength that one is used to must also be adjusted. None of the people present had experience fighting in space. So after entering the competition field, Zhukov adjusted the output of the armor to 50%. Because he was afraid that he would rush too hard and directly break through the steel fence, which would be considered a loss. If he lost in such a shameful way, it would be too embarrassing for him. As for defeating Kurno, Zhukov did not think it was a challenge. It was just a walk at most. Does a person who has only driven an engineering mecha know what fighting is? So when Captain Rogers stood in the base and said, "Start," Zhukov did not rush forward to fight with Kurno, but chose to use the palm cannon to shoot this layman out. He believed that this layman might not know how to use the palm cannon, right? But to be honest, he was not particularly familiar with this armor, so it would be best to resolve the battle with a long-range attack. So Zhukov started to use the palm cannon to shoot at Kurno, and blue-white energy shocks were released from the hands of Zhukov's armor. The guy on the opposite side really didn't seem to know how to use the palm cannon, and he hasn't started to fight back until now. Zhukov thought to himself that it was true. In order to get Kurno out as soon as possible, Zhukov increased the frequency of shooting. He just stood there like a pile and made shooting movements. Because Kurno seemed to be exhausted. But as time went by, Zhukov felt that the guy on the opposite side was getting harder and harder to hit. Standing in the base and watching the two people fighting, Captain Rogers couldn't help but say, "What an ugly fighting mode." If Tony Stark's operation of the Iron Man armor is like dancing a waltz in the war, then they are like tap dancing with a weight of 500 kilograms on their backs. Captain Rogers shook his head. The elites from various countries who were cheering for Zhukov in the base calmed down. Because Captain Rogers' evaluation is very strict, these people don't think they are much better than Zhukov. They are all rookies. However, as time went on, Captain Rogers began to slowly become interested in Kurno. He started to dodge Zhukov's firepower in a panic, then slowly stabilized his body to effectively dodge the attack, and now he seems to have mastered the essence of flexibility. Kurno operated the armor and began to dodge like a light step. No matter how dense and fierce Zhukov's firepower was, he just couldn't hit him. In the armor, Kurno took a deep breath. "Okay, I finally know the performance of this mecha. Adjust the output, 120%, and prepare to start the counterattack." Zhukov was a little unhappy. Although he repeatedly forced Kurno back and hit him several times. But he never forced him out of the circle, nor did he use up his energy bar. If he continued to release the palm cannon, it is very likely that his energy would be exhausted and he still couldn't deal with him. Zhukov looked at his energy bar parameters, and sure enough, only half was left. But Kurno's energy bar still had at least 2/3 left. Speaking of which, his consumption was even greater than his. Zhukov stopped shooting, and he needed to use close combat to resolve the battle, otherwise it would not look good even if he won. And this guy was too good at hiding. It would be embarrassing if his energy ran out first. Just when Zhukov stopped shooting and prepared to start close combat, Cherno seized the opportunity to counterattack. The reactor with 120% output instantly gushed out huge energy. The flight backpack behind the mecha sprayed out a fierce orange light, and Cherno's mecha had already killed Zhukov while he was still adjusting the dagger. How is it possible? Zhukov's surprise was not over yet, and Cherno's punch had already hit Zhukov's armor firmly. With 120% output, the force of the fist was like a landslide and tsunami. On the moon, where the gravity is only 1/6 of the Earth's, Zhukov was blown away like a meteor, drawing a beautiful arc in the air. Rogers, who was almost bored to sleep, became energetic at this time. He clapped his hands and said, "Beautiful." He turned to the other members and said, "I think Cherno may be able to be a team leader. What do you think?" Everyone looked at each other. Chapter 985 Getting on the Right Track. For Li Ji, he doesn't have time to participate in the establishment of the Space Force of SWRD. In fact, this matter can be handled by Captain Rogers and Tony Stark. With the two of them working together, Li Ji really has nothing to worry about. Now everything is on the right track, the Space Force is being established, and the King of Wakanda is also appropriately providing more vibranium to support this matter. Speaking of which, although Wakanda's Prince T'Challa was injured by Thor last time, he was not blamed in the end, and the fact that he later allocated vibranium to Tony and Captain Rogers with injuries was still very good. He also asked his father T'Chaka for mercy, and asked him to pull out another ton of vibranium from the royal treasury to support the work of SWRD. This is vibranium. Wakanda only sells a few hundred kilograms on the market every year, which is just a drizzle if it is scattered all over the world. Such precious vibranium, T'Challa risked being scolded by his father and pleaded for Tony and others, asking for an extra ton. To be honest, Tony, Rogers and the people who supported this project were grateful to T'Challa. Of course, if they knew that there were 10,000 tons of vibranium reserves in the royal warehouse of Wakanda, it is unclear whether they would be so grateful. In short, T'Challa was very successful in gaining goodwill. He received praise from the international community. When the old king of Wakanda, T'Chaka, heard these praises for his son, he smiled with relief. The X-Beauty Potion and the X-Medical Potion also began trial operation. The fake medicine made by the legendary blacksmith Fake Medicine King has now begun to have a small-scale outbreak. At least tens of millions of people have taken his fake medicine. If there is an outbreak, there will suddenly be a group of mutants in the world, and most of them are the kind with no abilities. And if the situation of mutants is still as grim as before, then it will really cause big trouble. For example, Li Ji's father Lian activated the X gene because he took fake medicine, but he never had any X abilities. It was not until some time ago that he seemed to have activated a mutant ability. His mutant ability is that his left palm can emit a temperature of 100 degrees. This ability is really useless. It is just to show Li Ji's mother what the iron palm is. And imitate the scene of frying eggs with a fire cloud palm in Stephen Chow's The God of Cookery. When Dad Lian first had this ability, he had a lot of fun. Every day, he would do some fire cloud palm, flame knife, iron sand palm, etc. But since he performed frying eggs with his bare hands, Li Ji's mother, Ms. Jia Li, asked him to toast bread slices every morning. Because the bread slices baked in this way can be better controlled than those baked by machines, and the key is that it saves electricity. Now Dad Lian will no longer show off for nothing. His mutant ability is considered a Delta-level mutant, and is at the same level as the taxi driver William. Although Lian finds it a bit strange that he awakened to a mutant in middle age, the media is now flooded with all kinds of propaganda about mutants and mutant genes. Many of the correct knowledge about mutants that Professor Charles wanted to promote and popularize back then have only begun to spread now. Mutants are not a disease, but a hidden gene in the human body that is activated. And now Tony has tied a group of cosmetics businesses to the chariot, plus the big dog owners in the Middle East who need him, and the people involved in the entire interest chain. All the groups that can directly or indirectly make profits from the X-Beauty Potion began to sing praises. Mutantism is good, mutantism is great. The media that used to rely on smearing mutants to earn ratings and eyeballs also began to change their direction instantly. They began to slap their previous reports in the face, and they slapped them hard without mercy. But it doesn't matter, What is the integrity of the media? Can it be eaten? They are reporting a few things about mutant knowledge, and they are no longer just reporting on mutant crimes. Instead, they write about more daily hardships in the lives of ordinary mutants, including many of the discrimination that mutants suffered in the past. It's as if the entire news industry has found its conscience overnight. Do they really find their conscience? Really? In fact, it's still the interests of capital that are at work. What is the product that has the largest advertising investment in this world? That's right, it's cosmetics. And what does the news media rely on for their livelihood? Of course, it's advertising. They discredit mutants just for the news ratings. Only when the ratings go up can they get more and better advertising contracts. In fact, this is a very simple industrial interest chain. As Tony Stark said before, this time, in order to successfully launch the X Beauty potion, it cost $1 billion in public relations fees. Money paves the way, and publicity corrects. In the subsequent public relations and advertising, Sugan Technology and a group of cosmetics merchants have prepared to invest nearly $3 billion in publicity. Their goal is simple, that is, it is best to label discrimination against mutants as a politically incorrect behavior. Even legislate this as racial discrimination. As long as this is done, the problem of mutants will be solved by half. And now there is indeed such an opportunity, because a large group of fat people are using X Beauty potion. They want to eat and drink a lot to lose weight. In the United States, although there is no legal provision, discrimination against fat people is a common felony. What if you discriminate against a group of fat mutants? Can it become a more serious crime? Unscrupulous businessmen are working towards this. Magneto and Professor X, and even the young students of Tuvalu, have never thought that the mutant problem will be solved in this way. There is no vigorous battle, no passionate revolution. Is the change just like this? Is the direction of public opinion just changing? Everyone has a sense of unreality. And Li Ji's father Lian also happened to awaken his fire cloud palm skill under this circumstance. So the bank's senior executives now dare not use the excuse of mutants to fire anyone at will. Now the mutant fats have begun to stick together. If they attack the mutants, it is very likely to cause the fat army to counterattack. So Li Ji is now beginning to feel that things are going on the right track. But he doesn't have much time to manage these things now. Because he is also very busy now, not because of anything else, but because of his best friend, the closest brother. Harry Osborn is now entering the Palace of Marriage. Chapter 986 Happy Days. Lan, where's the tie I bought yesterday? In his small villa, Li Ji was hurriedly packing his clothes, and did you see the newly ordered suit? Lan, who is drawing her eyebrows, said in a bad mood, I told you the day before yesterday that you had to find something to pack before going out. You waited until the last minute to find it. Where can you find it in such a mess? Although he said so, Lan still raised his hand and shouted, tie fly here. A newly bought navy blue tie flew through many obstacles and flew into Lan's hand. Then Lan threw it directly to Li Ji. I knew that our Lan is very powerful, so I'll reward you. Li Ji wanted to kiss Lan. But before he could get close, Lan messed up the space around him. Li Ji was obviously walking forward, but he ended up walking backward. His leg just hit the suitcase and he almost fell. Lan looked at Li Ji with disdain. I put on lipstick, don't touch me. Otherwise, it's all in vain. Today is the day Harry Osborn and Mary Jane are getting married. Their wedding will be held on Harry's newly purchased luxury cruise ship, the Cherish. In addition to holding the wedding on the cruise ship will also take a trip. As one of Harry's best friends, Li Ji naturally received an invitation from Harry. This time, he and Peter will attend the wedding as best men. The last time Harry and Mary's engagement ceremony was held at Osborn Manor, many reporters were there. This time, Harry didn't want to be disturbed by outsiders for the formal wedding ceremony. This time, he invited friends of himself and Mary, as well as some employees who have made outstanding contributions in the company. This can also be regarded as a kind of relaxation reward for employees. After all, they can travel on a luxury cruise ship for free. When Li Ji and Lan arrived at the scene, Peter and Gwen had already arrived. Hi, Gwen, Peter. Li Ji and Lan greeted Gwen and Peter. Gwen's exchange student career at the University of London is about to end. She will report to New York University after the summer vacation, which is a good thing for Peter. Because he finally doesn't have to take a plane or taxi to London to see Gwen. He doesn't have to worry about a British guy pestering Gwen every day. Distance is the best weapon. Gwen is about to return to New York, which makes Peter very excited. Once he is excited, he will talk a lot. When Gwen and Lan found a suitable place to chat on the cruise ship, Peter quietly pulled Lee Ji to the other side and said, "Hey, you know, I just went to secretly take a look at Mary and chatted with her for a few words. Did you know that she is pregnant?" "Wow!" Lee Ji exclaimed. "Harry is going to be a father soon." "Yes, Mary seems to have known about this today. So she told Harry about it, and now Harry is locking himself in the room and not coming out. He must be dancing with excitement. If this scene is seen by his subordinates, his prestige as a boss will be gone." There is a feeling of joy for the joy of his friend in Peter's tone. Lee Ji couldn't help but straighten his tie. "That's great. It looks like I'm going to have a godson or goddaughter." "You don't believe in religion, why are you pretending to be a godfather?" Peter elbowed Lee Ji in the chest. "I'm telling you, I'm going to make a request when Harry comes out. I want to be the child's godfather, and you can't." "Ha ha ha." Lee Ji laughed dryly. "Funny, the godfather needs a person with good character. You lost at the starting line. Only I am the most suitable candidate. Obviously it's me." "You old bastard," Peter argued. "Huh. As a playboy, what qualifications do you have to blame me?" Lee Ji also fought back mercilessly. The two old friends were hurting each other crazily, and at this time a pair of big hands hugged the two of them from behind. "Gentlemen, if you like children so much and want to be godfathers, why don't you have one yourself?" Harry Osborn appeared. His hair was still messy and his eyes were a little red. Although he looked a little embarrassed, he was in good spirits. This was a look after ecstasy. He looked like a winner in life and warned his friend, "If you like it, then do it quickly. Peter, marry Gwen, and you marry Lan. Everything will be perfect. In fact, I have always hoped that the three of us can hold the wedding on the same day. That would be perfect. It's a pity that you are too slow." Harry Osborn shook his head and made people want to hide him. Peter heard Harry's words and said dryly, Let's not talk about Gwen first. Every time I see her father, Mayor George, my heart beats faster. His eyes look like he will eat me up at any time. It's terrible. Propose to his daughter who is still in college? Well, even if he proposes after graduation, I suspect he will take out a shotgun and blow me to pieces." Peter's words were echoed in Lee Ji's heart. He used to have a good relationship with Kamar Taki, but since he and Lan confirmed their relationship, his relationship with Kamar Taki has become very subtle. To be precise, his relationship with Kamar Taki's chief steward, Wang, has become very subtle. Lan was raised by the king, and there is no difference between her and his biological daughter. Now every time I see the king, he looks at me as if he sees an unforgivable liar. It seems that if I show a little flaw, he will immediately launch an attack like the sea wave to kill me. As the chief steward of Kamar Taki, the king has a good relationship with all the mages. Many active mages are led by the king. It can be said that he is very prestigious in the mage circle. This caused me to be saluted by other mages every time I went to the New York temple. Some mages, not knowing whether they were instructed by the king or were land suitors in the past, would inexplicably come up to me and say, "Be careful, you have been targeted by us." Oh my god. If I officially marry Lan, will the king make all kinds of irrational moves? Lee Ji was a little worried. Just when the three brothers had their own happiness and troubles, a suspended sports car fell from the sky and stopped steadily on the platform of the cruise ship. This is a custom-made supercar produced by Stark Group, and its owner is Tony Stark. Tony brought his wife, Mrs. Pepper Stark, who is already pregnant and had a big belly. He held Pepper's hand, looked at the lively crowd on the cruise ship and the various decorations prepared for the wedding and said, "Today is such a happy day." Chapter 987 Delivery at the Wedding. The Cherish officially left the New York harbor at around 2 p.m., heading for Cuba, the first destination. Tomorrow, when it reaches the high seas, it will be the time for Harry and Mary to officially hold their wedding. According to tradition, a bachelor's ball will be held the night before the wedding. However, Harry Osborn is not a playboy like Tony Stark. He invited some performance teams to perform live at his bachelor's ball before the wedding, and there were also some beauties. But it was not as spectacular as when all the Victoria's Secret angels performed at Tony's wedding. However, there must be a card game, which is a must for a bachelor's ball. In fact, the final madness of a group of men is very simple, either with beautiful opposite sex, or with a few wins and losses at the gambling table. Harry was no exception. After the Cherish arrived at the high seas, the casino below was opened. The opening of the casino also officially announced the start of the Bachelor's Ball. Unlike the card game Tony played on the New Zealand island he bought last time, which was just an embellishment, Harry's Cherish will be used as a commercial cruise ship in the future, so the casino inside is also very luxurious. However, because this casino is integrated, there is no need to divide it into male and female sections as Tony did last time. Although there are not enough beauties, I have to say that this casino is still quite presentable. After Tony Stark sent Pepper to her room to rest, he strolled to the casino of the Cherish alone. Pepper's belly is now very big and it is not suitable for her to walk around. However, as Harry Osborn is the leader of the Osborn group who has the closest relationship with the Stark group, Tony and Pepper must attend his wedding. Especially since Harry has sent an invitation. But now Pepper can only stay in the luxury suite and cannot go out to play. Tony, on the other hand, has a lot of fun. In the casino, Luigi and Peter are struggling with the slot machine. The chips they exchanged for several thousand yuan have been eaten up by the slot machine, but no big prize has been given so far. Damn it, Harry should have someone adjust the odds of this machine. I've already invested $2,000. Peter was very dissatisfied, and Luigi helplessly spread his hands. This should be for business use. I said Harry is getting married today, shouldn't the winning rate of these machines be higher? Let everyone who comes to play win more prizes, just treat it as a welfare distribution. Luigi and Peter were complaining about the problem of slot machines that only go in but not out. At this time, Tony Stark patted the shoulders of the two from behind. Gentlemen, you are already rich. Can't you play some high-end things in the casino? Don't play with electronic toys like children. Luigi's Marvel Entertainment is now getting bigger and bigger, and has already established a scale in Hollywood. Now Peter has not yet established a Parker Group. This project is still in the planning stage, but his Parker particles have brought him rich profits, although most of them have been donated by him. It can be said that the two are now rich. Tony took the two from the slot machine to the gambling table specially for people to play. There are roulette, baccarat, blackjack, Texas Hold'em, etc. Moreover, compared to slot machines, which are for light gamblers, the winnings and losses of these bets are greater. It is normal to win tens of thousands of dollars. Fortunately, this is a pre-wedding entertainment event, and there are no particularly large bets. Everyone is here to play and have fun, not to fight in Las Vegas. Where are your female companions? Tony knew Lan and Gwen, which was not surprising. Luigi and Tony were comrades in arms, and Lan had met Iron Man several times. As the daughter of George Stacy, Gwen has been a celebrity in New York City since high school. Although George was not the mayor of New York City at that time, as the deputy commissioner of the New York City Police Department, he was also one of the most powerful people in New York City. Gwen had accompanied her father to many banquets since high school, and Tony had a good memory for women. He knew that Chief George had a beautiful daughter very early. When Peter joined the Horizon Foundation, Tony was surprised to know that Gwen became Peter's girlfriend. Compared with the gorgeous and intelligent Gwen, Peter seemed too ordinary. Although he was very talented, he was not tall or handsome. I can only say that Peter is a fool with good fortune. Hearing Tony asking about their female companions, Luigi and Peter both spread their hands helplessly. They have already run away. Yet, Gwen said she wanted to go with Lan to kill everyone. Luigi said, Lan is like a gambling god. Hey, have you seen where Mary is? Harry hurriedly ran over from the other side and asked Luigi and Peter. He saw Tony and said hello to him, and Tony nodded in response. No. Luigi and Peter both said they didn't see Mary. Tony pointed to the direction of the blackjack game not far away and said, Guys, I think I found your female companions. At the blackjack table, Lan was leisurely holding two poker cards. She said calmly, Who wants to follow? In front of her, the chips were already piled high. Mary and Gwen leaned on Lan on the left and right, and the faces of the two girls were flushed with excitement. They were still holding a handful of chips in their hands. Lan now looked like the gambling god in gambling movies who was killing everyone and giving tips to the girls who accompanied him in gambling. Wow. Peter looked at Lan in disbelief. He asked Luigi, Did you know that she is actually a female gambling god? This? She usually doesn't show this side of her in front of me. Luigi was also a little sweaty. But Tony Stark seemed to be interested. He walked to the opposite side of Lan and raised his eyebrows. Miss Lan, are you interested in gambling with me? Lan said fearlessly, Okay. A big gambling game was kicked off. The far-reaching impact of this gambling game was beyond the expectation of the parties involved. From today on, Tony Stark officially bid farewell to the gambling world. And Lee Ji's family bought a few more supercars. Well, they were birthday gifts bought by Lan for Lee Ji. All the electrical appliances in Enigmatic were replaced, and even a few large houses were renovated. Some remote areas under the Himalayas suddenly had more schools built with donations from unknown kind-hearted people. In short, when Tony Stark attended Harry's wedding the next day, he felt a little out of his mind. Tony was still in shock when the witness was reading the oath. It wasn't until the witness said, "Who objects?" that Pepper, who had been sitting quietly next to Tony, suddenly shouted. Only then did Tony come to his senses. "What's wrong with you?" Tony was a little panicked, because Pepper was sweating and screaming in pain. Mary and Harry's wedding had to be temporarily interrupted. Pepper clenched her hands tightly, and her voice was almost crying. "Oh, God, I feel the baby moving. I may be giving birth." Everyone present was a little confused. Pepper was going to give birth at Harry and Mary's wedding? In the end, Lee Ji reacted the fastest. "Everyone disperse, send to the medical room. Find a doctor immediately, Iron Man, why are you still standing there like an idiot?" Chapter 988, The Birth of Jenny Stark. Tony's wife Pepper is about to give birth, right at Harry and Mary's wedding? Exclamation mark. This incident caught everyone off guard, and Harry's wedding could not be held for the time being. Because everyone was attracted by Pepper's problem. Lee Ji, Peter, and Harry's three old friends helped to carry Pepper on the stretcher and sent her to the medical room. "Gently, gently. There's a gentle slope ahead, G, go slowly." Peter put his spider sense to the maximum. Even the slightest bumps on the road were not spared. "Turn left in front, go in the third hatch and go down one level." Harry led the way in front wearing the groom's clothes. Mary followed the stretcher. She grabbed Pepper's hand and said, it's okay. I'm almost dying of pain." "God!" Pepper screamed hoarsely. This is no wonder, because in the pain classification, childbirth belongs to the 12th level of pain. It is the maximum level of pain that humans can bear. When the pain exceeds this level, humans will activate the protection mechanism, which is what people generally call fainting from pain. Lan, who was following Lee Ji and had been secretly using magic to control the stretcher to move smoothly, showed a look of pity after hearing Peibo's painful scream. Lee Ji did not notice Lan's expression, he was concentrating on hurrying on his way. Fortunately, the medical room on the Zhane was not very far away. As a luxury cruise ship that will be sailing on ocean routes in the future, the medical room on the Zhane is very professional. It is not worse than many high-end hospitals. There is also an operating table for microsurgery and a simple limb regeneration operating table. There are also various medicines and medical equipment. There are even 2 doctors and 3 nurses on the entire ship. Now all the medical staff of this Zhane have come to the medical room. "Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, lady. Take a deep breath," a doctor said to Peibo, and asked the nurse and another deputy doctor to prepare the operating table and oxygen mask. Peibo listened to the doctor's words and took a deep breath, but the severe pain made her breath tremble. Peibo's voice sounded like she was suffering from some terrible torture, and everyone who heard it couldn't help but shudder. Lan hid behind Lee Ji involuntarily and grabbed the hem of Lee Ji's clothes. Lee Ji turned around and patted Lan's hand, then hugged her and said, "It's okay." Lan rubbed Lee Ji's chest with her head in Lee Ji's arms. She looked up at Lee Ji and said seriously, "Is it so painful to give birth?" "Huh? I think so." Lee Ji said that he had never given birth before and didn't know how to answer this question. Lan looked at Lee Ji very seriously and said, "Can we not give birth in the future? I'm so afraid of pain." "Huh?" Lee Ji looked at Lan for a long time without saying anything. In the medical room, the doctor walked out quickly and said to Harry, who was standing outside, "Mr. Osborn, I'm not an obstetrician and gynecologist, and my nurse is not a professional midwife. If Ms. Pepper wants to give birth on the ship, it will be very risky." I know. Tony Stark has already found a professional. What you need to do now is to ensure the health and safety of Ms. Pepper." Harry pushed the doctor back into the medical room. Mary leaned on Harry's shoulder and whispered, "Why hasn't Tony come back yet? Didn't he fly out in his Iron Man suit? We're not that far from New York now. I think we should be there soon." Harry patted Mary's shoulder and said comfortingly. Mary leaned on Harry's shoulder and said gently, What do you think? If we want a child, will it be a boy or a girl? Harry kissed Mary's hair. It would be best if we have both a boy and a girl. This way they won't be alone in this world. Hearing Harry's words, Mary looked up at Harry, and they smiled at each other. On the other side, Gwen crossed her arms, and it was hard to tell whether she was excited or a little nervous. Oh my God, a little baby is born. I'm so excited. Gwen patted her chest. Peter on the side said, Gwen, this is not the birth of our child, why are you so excited? Gwen couldn't help but raise her eyebrows when she heard Peter's words and said, our child? Seriously, Peter Parker? I don't plan to go any further with you. Look at Tony Stark just now. He used to be a famous playboy, and the whole world knows it. But look at how strict he is with himself after getting married. There are no more scandals. And did you see the expression on his face when he just learned that Pepper was going to give birth? That kind of excitement and nervousness. I believe Tony Stark will be a good husband and a good father in the future. Gwen glanced at Peter sideways when she said this. Can you do it? Since the incident with the reality gems, the two have had a telepathic ability. However, this ability can be controlled. Gwen calls the ability to control telepathy, brain closure. Gwen practiced very well, but Peter was always a little short. Peter, who is almost out of touch now, thought and said with great joy, if you are willing to entrust the rest of your life to me, I am willing to give you all of my life. I can go to buy milk on time every day and take the children to Central Park to fly kites on weekends. We can also watch a scary horror movie together after coaxing the children to sleep. As long as you are willing. Peter said this. He did not have any fancy words. But it was unusually sincere. Gwen could feel that Peter was telling the truth at this moment. She turned around and ignored what Peter said, but a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth, and even when Peter hugged her from behind, Gwen did not refuse. The red and gold steel armor belt protected an obstetrician and gynecologist who followed Tony's black and gold armor from New York all the way to the Cherish. And the doctor had just come out of the armor and hadn't stood still when Tony pushed him into the medical room. He pushed Tony and said, Doctor, please. I will build a new office for you as agreed. Tony walked around the room upset. Only then did he realize that Lee G, Harry, and Peter were three young couples who were all affectionate with each other. He had completely forgotten the existence of Tony Stark. Oh, really? Tony wanted to curse, but he held back in the end. The waiting time was long. Lee G and others accompanied Tony outside the operating room to wait for Pepper's delivery to be completed. About half an hour later, a loud cry of a baby sounded in the operating room. Yes. Yes. Tony jumped up from the stool immediately after hearing this voice, waving his fists wildly. He was a little crazy. And Lee G couldn't help but walk up and slap Tony. Tony. Hey. Tony. The scene began to become a little chaotic. At this time, the doctor pushed open the door of the operating room. He took off his mask and said to Tony, the delivery went smoothly, and the mother and daughter are safe. Congratulations, Mr. Stark, it's a girl. Ha ha ha. Tony laughed a little crazy, and the wrinkles on his face looked like a steamed bun that Gubuli didn't care about. But at this time, no one cared about the image. Everyone came up to shake hands with him and congratulated him. While congratulating him and sending him blessings, Lee G asked, by the way, Tony, how is it? Have you thought of the name of the child? In fact, I thought about it a long time ago. If it's a boy, what will it be called? And if it's a girl, what will it be called? Tony was in a particularly good mood today, and he didn't even feel sad about losing a large sum of money to Lan yesterday. He looked at his wife and the newborn child across the glass of the ward and said proudly, she will be the proudest princess in the world in the future, my child, Jenny Stark. Chapter 989 Dr. Banner's Suspicion. Recently, all countries have discovered some strange things. No, it should not be called strange things. It is a major breakthrough that is circulated in the basic science community. At first, a laboratory in Europe that studies basic materials science made a huge breakthrough in the experiment of a new nanomaterial. An ultra-light and ultra-strong nano-covered coating material was developed. And this project has been under research for 5 years. Britain, France and Germany have allocated more than $100 million to this laboratory, and the original plan for this project was to do it for 10 years. The first phase of the experiment should take nearly 3 years, the second phase will take 7 years, and the third phase will take 10 years. The final third phase is to produce the coding material on a small scale at the laboratory level, and then enter the next 10 years of civilian and military commercial research. The entire plan is planned for 20 years to be industrialized. However, there are always various unexpected events in scientific research. Even the most outstanding scientists in the world dare not say when their research will definitely produce results. Unless the scientist already knows the final answer in advance, it is normal for the chemical to be delayed. And this nanomaterial project is exactly like this. The first phase of research took 4 years to complete. Far less than the 3-year plan formulated at the beginning. The second phase was stuck just after it started. The budget departments of Britain, France and Germany were all considering whether the research direction of this laboratory was wrong. Because the entire experiment had not made any progress. But since the beginning of this year, Professor Knight, the scientist in charge of the project, seemed to be assisted by God. He always got various inspirations inadvertently. Whenever his experiment was stuck, he just had to go out for a walk, and he could get various inspirations to help him break the deadlock. In just half a year, the progress of the entire laboratory was advancing rapidly. The whole experiment was like a teacher deliberately leaking questions to students. The research on nanomaterials completed the entire process that was originally expected to take 7 years in half a year. Now it has entered the stage of expanding industrialization. When Professor Knight began to publish his experimental process and results in academic journals in the past 6 months, it caused quite a stir. Because everyone thought that this project would not produce results until at least 10 years later. The new nano-coating material has a very broad future. An advance in basic science can often lead to a big step forward in applied science. If there is only one advance in nanomaterials, it can be said that it is a burst of inspiration from a genius scientist. Although this is legendary, it is possible in human history. However, the entire basic science circle has been advancing at a rapid speed in the past 6 months. If the speed of human exploration of basic science was just riding a bicycle slowly, the progress of basic science in the past 6 months is like riding a 300-horsepower Kawasaki H2R supercharged motorcycle to participate in a drag race. You have already reached the finish line in a flash, and you don't even know how many times you changed gears during the process. Basic science is making great strides forward, and everyone who pays attention to the scientific community knows it. In the past 6 months, authoritative scientific journals have published more supplements than in the previous 10 years combined. Those articles with 2.0 and 3.0 impact factors seem to have become worthless, and anyone can write them. Li Ji is not a scientist, and he doesn't read magazines such as Nature and Science that are so professional that laymen can't understand them at all. So he doesn't know what is happening in the scientific community now. Tony does read these magazines, but most of the time he jumps through them. He specialized in new energy and machinery, so he only read articles on materials science, and only glanced at other articles without paying much attention. The ones who really read these articles carefully were Dr. Hank and Dr. Banner. Dr. Banner was not familiar with Harry, so he would not attend Harry's wedding. When Li Ji, Tony and others attended Harry's wedding, and Tony also had a daughter. In the Venus base, Dr. Banner was puzzled and put all the scientific magazines he had read in the past 6 months into a pile. He frowned and thought about something, and Dr. Hank, who had turned his blue hair into silver, walked in from outside with a cup of coffee. He saw what Dr. Banner did and asked curiously, "What are you doing?" "I'm just curious, have you read the latest issue of Science?" Dr. Banner asked Dr. Hank, who looked like a silverback gorilla. "I've read it. Dr. Wang from China's article on quantum communication is very impressive. His article has pushed the field of quantum communication forward by at least 20 years. As long as it can be industrialized, the world's information and communication industry will undergo earth-shaking changes in the future." Dr. Banner nodded seriously. Dr. Banner looked at Dr. Hank and said, "Yes, but don't you think it's strange? There are too many influential articles of this kind recently." "What's strange?" Dr. Hank was a little puzzled. "Isn't this a good thing for the scientific community?" "It's a good thing, but it's too concentrated. Isn't it?" Dr. Banner pointed to the magazine he had spread out and said, "In normal times, there would only be 1 or 2 such articles a year, or at most 3 or 5. But since the beginning of this year, it has only been half a year, and look at how many such articles have appeared. From materials science, to communications, to cytology, and so on. All fields are making great strides forward. It's just that the pace of progress is too great. Dr. Banner said, touching his chin. It's so big that we can't apply all of these scientific advances in the short term. If we can master all of these scientific advances, then we should be able to step into the near future scenes often depicted in Hollywood movies. And we generally believe that that kind of near future scene will not appear until more than 100 or 200 years later. Dr. Banner looked at Dr. Hank and said seriously, "What do you think this means, Dr. Hank?" Hank frowned. "What do you want to say?" Banner began to collect the magazines and said, "When I was in Nepal, Captain Rogers, Jason and Thor came to me. Jason also gave me some books to read. There is a set of books in it that I remember very clearly. It is from the Once Upon a Time in Earth trilogy by the Chinese writer Liu Cixin. In the first part of the Once Upon a Time in Earth trilogy, the three-body problem, the three-body aliens send out intelligent sons to block all basic scientific progress of mankind in order to lock down the technology of the Earthlings, so that humans will have no power to fight back when facing the attack of the three-body fleet for hundreds of years." Dr. Banner said thoughtfully. "This approach is strategically correct. What's interesting is that we are now on the opposite side of the book, the three-body problem. Our basic science is making great strides. It's as if the teacher deliberately leaked the questions to the students. Our calculation and deduction process is extremely smooth. I really doubt that someone is pushing us forward from behind." Dr. Banner said to Hank, "Who is doing this and what is his purpose?" Chapter 990 The Approaching Shadow. Liang Fifan Long, feels that he has done a great service to the people on Earth. Because in the past 6 months, he has been running around and putting out fires all over the world. What fires are he putting out? Of course, he is putting out the fire of basic science in the human world. The technological level of the dragon people is much higher than that of the Earth, and as a former scientist of the dragon people, Liang Fifan has mastered quite a lot of technology. However, because the dragon people are different from humans in biological form, the development of the dragon people's civilization has diverged. This also makes many of the dragon people's technologies mastered by Fifan Long not feasible on Earth. However, many things in basic disciplines are still common, because everyone is in the same universe, where 1 + 1 = 2. Basic science is something related to the development of the entire science and technology for the Earth. A breakthrough in basic science at certain important nodes will often lead to a qualitative leap in the entire industry. Because Liang Fifan, the dragon of Fifan, had eaten a Skrull in the past, his genes had some mutations and acquired the abilities of the Skrull. He can change his body shape freely. He can turn into a flying bird or a swimming fish. This helped him a lot in providing inspiration to basic science laboratories in various countries while hiding. Why did Liang Fifan selflessly help the Earthlings to improve the level of basic science? Because he reported that the Skrulls died on Earth and were eaten by the Earthlings. He wanted the Earthlings and the Skrulls to go to war. These two civilizations are enemies to him. He hopes that both sides will suffer losses. But from now on, the strength of the Earth is still a little short. So he wants to boost the strength of the Earthlings. According to Fifan Long's calculations, if the Skrulls set out from the Andromeda Galaxy, it would take at least 200 years to reach the Earth. Because the Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way have not directly built stargates that can accommodate large-scale military passages. If there is no stargate and only relies on spacecraft to jump, it will be a very long journey. This period of time is enough for him to help the Earthlings improve their technological level. Sounds weird, doesn't it? The Earthlings are obviously Liang Fifan's enemies, so why does he still help the Earthlings? This is probably the so-called uniting a weak enemy to defeat the powerful enemy they face together. However, Liang Fifan's actions have attracted the attention of Dr. Banner, but Dr. Banner has not yet produced any evidence that someone is really messing around on Earth, and scientific progress is always a good thing. So he did not mobilize all the resources of the Illuminati to investigate this matter in a big way, and he also hoped that he was just being too suspicious. So regarding the great progress in basic science, Dr. Banner just started some small-scale investigations on his own. Liang Fifan felt that there was still plenty of time, and there were 100 years to slowly improve the scientific level of the people on Earth. But in fact, there was not as much time as he thought. Because the Skrulls did not rely on their own fleet to expedition to Earth, but found pirates near the Milky Way, the Chitauri to attack the Earth. And now, after half a year of sailing, they are getting closer and closer to the solar system where the Earth is located. This time, The Chitauri dispatched nearly 500 King Bug warships as the main force, and there were 12 large motherships as support. Along the way, they had to move in a curve to avoid the patrol team of the Nova Corps in the Milky Way. This was a sneak attack, and they did not want to alarm the Nova Corps. Because the Chitauri are always in the top 20 of the Nova Corps wanted list. And the master of the Chitauri, Thanos, known as the Cosmic Overlord Thanos, is the number 1 on the Nova Corps wanted list. They have wanted to catch Thanos for a long time. Sam's father, the previous generation of supernovas, almost caught Thanos. Along with the Chitauri fleet came the Royal Observation Group from the Skrull planet. They are responsible for reporting the situation on the scene to Emperor Skrull Vidai in the future. They want to make sure that this time the Chitauri's attack will be able to exterminate the race and civilization. The Skrulls are so domineering that they either don't take action, or once they take action, they must extinguish all the flames of the enemy civilization. The person in charge of this mission is another nephew of the Emperor, a count named Messiah. This is really a boring journey. We stayed on the ship for a full 150 Skrull standard days, about half a year on Earth. No. If we count the time we set out from the Skrull King City, we actually spent more than 200 Skrull standard days on the ship. Oh my god, it's so boring. When can we reach Earth? Count Messiah is not really interested in this job. Watching a group of pirates destroy a low-level civilization? It's such a waste. This kind of place with a certain civilization foundation should be enclosed. Use a civilization that is beyond their time to block them, and then play the role-playing game of God yourself. Thunder, lightning, rain and dew are all God's grace. Play as a god to rule this place. Then spread your so-called beliefs. Then you can designate a group of people as heretics and let the Holy Inquisition judge these heretics. Then you can transform into a demon and support these heretics, letting them fight with the Knights of the Inquisition. In the end, see whether the pure Inquisition wins or the rebellious heretics win. But no matter who wins, this civilization will inevitably be riddled with holes in the end. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Isn't this just for fun? It doesn't matter if many people die. I can use the cloning machines produced by the Skrulls to cultivate these low-end civilization creatures on a large scale. Release a large number of cloned newborns into this world and let them continue to fight to the death. How interesting it is. This is the entertainment activity that Count Messiah likes. And this time the Chitauri pirates actually want to wipe out all these Earth races? It's a pity. According to the information sent back by compatriots on Earth, the appearance of some Earth women is quite in line with my aesthetics. Or capture a few female slaves before the destruction of the Earth? This can also be regarded as ensuring the possible continuation of a race. When Messiah was feeling bored, the internal affairs officer on his spaceship sent him a message, "My lord, these boring days will soon be over." What do you mean? According to the star map coordinates, as long as we cross the asteroid belt in front, we will only have the last 15 jumps away from the solar system. At most, there will be 45 Skrull standard days before we can reach the solar system. The internal affairs officer said so. It will only take 3 standard Skrull days to deal with a primary civilization like Earth. We can return home after we finish all this, and when you return to the Skrull Royal City, you will also receive a reward from His Majesty the Emperor. The words of the internal affairs officer made Count Mesha feel better. He waved his hand and said, "Then I will go to the hibernation chamber to rest for a while, and wake me up after arriving in the solar system." The Skrull spacecraft followed the Chitauri warships and flew over an asteroid belt, and they were about to make their final jump. In the asteroid belt, an invisible monitor was transmitting all the images it captured back. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 991 Pain Transfer Magic. Giving birth is actually not that painful, I'm serious. On the cruise ship of the Cherish, Li Ji was saying to Lan, "Look, we now have painless delivery technology. It's just that Pepper happened to give birth on the ship, so there just happened to be no such equipment." Li Ji pulled Lan and tried to explain. Because Lan had been traumatized since she saw the pain of Pepper giving birth last time, especially after she stood outside the operating room and heard Pepper's heart-wrenching screams, she was now traumatized. This caused her to have a traumatic impression of Li Ji, and she was now very resistant to any close contact with Li Ji. In her words, giving birth is too painful. I'm super afraid of pain. Well, this reason is not unreasonable, right? Giving birth is indeed very painful for women. But this made Li Ji a little confused, and he was trying hard to say all kinds of nice things to Lan. I'm serious, Lan. You can have a painless delivery. No. Lan shook her head like a rattle, and she was buried in a pile of books. These were the various magic books from Kamartaki that she brought. The book Lan was reading looked very old. The blood red mark on the cover had an indescribable sense of evil. This book didn't look like a good book. It looked like the magic books used by demons or sorcerers in the movies. Li Ji noticed some words on the cover, which were written in Latin. Because Li Ji studied magic, although he didn't learn much, he also learned some Latin, Old English, small seal script, Sanskrit, etc. Although he learned very little. So he could understand the name of this book, which was called 120 Forbidden Spells. Well, this book should be placed in the restricted area of the Hogwarts Library, and it cannot be borrowed without the approval of Headmaster Dumbledore. Li Ji pointed to the title of the book. Lan, what are you reading? This book doesn't look good. His eyes and tone were a bit resistant to this kind of book. This book exuded an evil aura from beginning to end. Lan turned around and looked at Li Ji. Don't be prejudiced against books. They are just carriers of knowledge, and there is no such thing as good or bad. Only the people who use this knowledge are good or bad. But Li Ji still looked at the book with some doubt and asked, so what is this book about? Forbidden Spells. I borrowed it from Master Ancient One with special approval. Li Ji, does he really need the approval of Headmaster Dumbledore? There are many interesting magics recorded in it. Although some of them are indeed cruel, some of them are still useful in life. Li Ji asked doubtfully, For example, I found a very interesting magic. Pain transfer spell. It can form a bridge between two people, transferring all the pain and damage suffered by Party A to Party B. Lan put down the book and began to talk to Li Ji seriously. I actually never checked it before, but I asked her after seeing Paybol give birth. It is very uncomfortable after pregnancy, not only giving birth, but also various strong pregnancy reactions. Pain, insomnia, nausea, loss of appetite, etc. Lan counted on her fingers, and she talked more and more, but Li Ji had a bad feeling. In fact, just suddenly carrying a belly weighing more than 10 or 20 kilograms is very hard. And if I have to suffer all this pain, to be honest, I really don't want to have a baby. At this point, Lan suddenly stood up, then hugged Li Ji's neck and asked softly, Do you want to have a baby with me? Combined with the previous text, Lan doesn't want to have a baby. At this time, it seems that the correct answer is no. But this seemingly simple 3-point question is actually a fatal question. If Li Ji dares to say no, then he will be criticized. So even though he knows that Lan may be setting a trap, Li Ji has to jump into it. This is called an open conspiracy. It is exactly the same as the pits he dug for others in the past. Li Ji said affectionately, Of course, I have always wanted to have a baby with you, get married. As long as you are willing. Well, we have to find a way to deal with Wang. Lan kissed Li Ji's cheek, bit his ear and said, Then when I get pregnant, we will use this magic, okay? Well. Li Ji pretended to be puzzled. It's the magic of pain transfer. Lan's expression was innocent. Don't worry, I'm studying this magic now. I will remove some of the side effects of this magic. What side effects? Li Ji's face was stiff. Well, for example, the party B who bears the damage may share his own vitality. I will remove this. As long as the pain is transferred, it will be fine. In the future, I will be responsible for giving birth to the child, and you will be responsible for the pain, okay? Li Ji. Lan looked at Li Ji very seriously, her eyes were full of expectations. What did Li Ji dare to say? What could Li Ji say? Although he was in a state of collapse, he still smiled and said, okay. Lan jumped for a little joy, and then kissed Li Ji's lips. This is a reward for you. I feel relieved if you volunteer like this. In fact, I still like children very much. Jenny Stark looks so cute when she is small. We can have more children in the future. Li Ji smiled, okay. By the way, I think this magic experiment can be used on Gwen and Mary after it is completed. Especially Mary, she is now married to Harry. I heard that she wants a child very much, and this magic will be very helpful to her. Lam said. Li Ji's smile became more sincere, you are right. Just when Li Ji and Lan were studying how painful pregnancy is, Dr. Hank sent a message. A large number of alien spacecraft traces have been found, and the target may be the Earth. Come quickly. After receiving this message, Li Ji was in no mood to chat with Lan about these things. He told Lan about the matter, and Lan patted him on the back and told him, go quickly. When Li Ji arrived at the Venus base, Dr. Hank looked at Li Ji in surprise, and then said, why don't you look very good? Li Ji smiled, nothing, maybe in a certain period of time in a few years, my complexion will be uglier. Dr. Hank touched his golden hair. Yes, today Dr. Hank turned the blue hair into gold, and shook his head, not caring whether this was the latest joke of the Night Walker. He took Li Ji to the strategic meeting room of the base, and the bigwigs of the Illuminati were already waiting in the meeting room. After seeing everyone was present, Captain Rogers stood up and spoke, gentlemen, our biggest test has arrived. A group of dangerous alien thugs are heading towards the Earth. We must be prepared. Li Ji did not hear clearly what Captain Rogers said. He was still immersed in the pain transfer magic that Lan said. I really have to take Lan's place to accept the pain of pregnancy and childbirth in the future. It must be painful. Li Ji thought about it in a disjointed way. He even forgot the news that the Chitauri were coming. Until Captain Rogers called him by name, Night Walker, do you have any opinions on this matter? What? Li Ji woke up. Oh, the Chitauri, right? Just kill them all. It just so happens that this incident has given us a stepping stone to move into the universe, and by the way, it is time to expose the Inhumans. Chapter 992 Plans and Unplanned. Since the Chitauri are here, shouldn't we show them our hospitality? When friends come, we have fine wine. When enemies come, we have shotguns. Li Ji put the matter of pain transfer magic aside for the time being. We can give them a grand welcome ceremony. How is our fleet prepared? Li Ji turned to ask Dr. Hank, who was in charge of the main manufacturing work of the Venus base. Dr. Hank pushed his black-framed glasses. Currently, there are more than 30 Yamato-class strategic cruisers in a mixed formation. Each formation contains 12 Yamato-class cruisers, and is equipped with 60 Viking-class multi-purpose warships as escorts. There are also the same number of Banshee-class warships, and each formation also contains 3 Nighthawk-class reconnaissance ships. Our manufacturing speed has begun to increase rapidly since Magneto came. Although Dr. Hank doesn't like Magneto very much, he still needs to give positive affirmation to this positive thing Magneto has done. Many components that originally required precision processing seriously slowed down the expansion of our fleet. For example, the engine rotors on the Yamato-class battleships require at least 5 days to be processed by a processing machine. But because of the addition of Magneto marks, he can control the movement of metals at the atomic level, and he can produce more than 1,000 rotors in a day. Dr. Hank couldn't help but exclaim, capturing Magneto is probably the most correct decision you made as Nightcrawler. Li Ji nodded. It has been said that it is the most wasteful to use Magneto's abilities to fight and kill. Such people's abilities should be used to upgrade black technology. Otherwise, he would be unworthy of his title of legendary blacksmith. After Dr. Hank finished speaking, Tony Stark nodded and interrupted. In addition, according to the intelligence parameters previously provided by Star-Lord, from the internal information of the Nova Corps, the main battleship of the Chitauri is the Abo ship. Its firepower and armor parameters are close to those of the Yamato-class strategic cruiser. The Yamato class is on par with the Abo ship in performance. Even the destructive power of the Yamato's charged main gun can directly penetrate the Abo ship with one shot. In terms of quantity, our main battleships are at a certain disadvantage compared to the Chitauri. But we have an absolute advantage in the configuration of frigates. According to the data provided by Star-Lord, the single-person flying insect battleships configured by the Chitauri have powerful firepower, but weak protection. The main guns of the Viking-class battleships can easily penetrate their armor. Tony said this with confidence. We have an absolute advantage in the configuration of frigates, and we can tear apart their defenses in an instant. According to the video data sent back, we can also see that they brought 12 motherships. This is more troublesome. According to the data, this kind of warship is thick-skinned. Only the main guns of the Yamato class can penetrate their surface armor. To deal with these guys, we may need to be more careful and not let them run away. Tony said this, and it seems that he did not take the attack of the Chitauri seriously. Instead, he has begun to calculate whether the other party will escape. Yes, because in this battle, The Chitauri thought that they were attacking the Earth by surprise, and the Earth was powerless to resist. But they didn't know that it was still uncertain who is the hunter and who is the fox. Moreover, the scale of the Chitauri's deployment this time was not as large as imagined, which was a good thing for the Earthlings. Don't say that, don't say that. Li Ji waved his hand to stop Tony's optimism. Strategically we should despise the enemy, but tactically we should take the enemy seriously. But since they are here, let's not leave. Li Ji said this, and also said to the other people in the Illuminati, this time, let's keep all the Chitauri. It's time for Earth civilization to join the big family of the universe. Of course, there is another important prerequisite for joining the big family of the universe, that is, to see how Star-Lord and others talk to Nova Corps. However, in addition to the Nova Corps in the universe, Li Ji and the bigwigs of the Illuminati on Earth also need to make some other preparations. It's time to start the plan that has been prepared for a long time. Li Ji said to others, especially to Professor Charles and Dr. Doom, I think everyone is ready. We should use the Dark Elves to stimulate the Earth Federation first. And it's time to improve the international status of Tuvalu and Latveria. Professor Charles and Dr. Doom smiled at each other. Loki is planning a lot of things recently. The main plan is to kill the snake Jormungandr after obtaining the 3 infinite gems. She has a long-term plan. According to the documents and legends recorded in the Eternal City, Jormungandr will set off the Ragnarok, the world will be shaken, and will eventually be killed by Asgard's Thor when the world is on the verge of breaking. In the first Ragnarok, countless kingdoms of gods were destroyed, leading to the end of the mythological era. The tentacles of the gods can no longer interfere with the human world at will. This is not only on Earth, but also other civilized empires in the universe have been freed from the mythological era and are no longer dominated by the gods. What consequences will the second Ragnarok cause? Will all the gods perish, and even all civilizations perish together and start over? Loki doesn't know, and she doesn't want to know. She only knows that in the legend, Thor will stop all this in the end, and at the cost of his own life. The first Ragnarok was stopped by the previous generation of Thor Odin. The price was that he lost an eye forever, and would fall into the weak Odin sleep every once in a while. It is hard to imagine how weak Odin, who was so powerful that he could overwhelm the 9 realms and beat most of the gods in the universe, and even called Thanos the purple-skinned little cutie, was after entering Odin's sleep. As long as a young child holding an ordinary knife could kill this extremely powerful god. This is Odin's biggest weakness and the price he paid. Even so, Jormungandr was only sealed. If he makes a comeback, who will stop him this time? The answer is obvious, the contemporary Thor. Since the previous generation of Thor Odin did not die, it must be the contemporary Thor who sacrificed his life to end it all. But Loki didn't want to see that day, she didn't want to see the death of Thor or Odin. She needed to do something, she wanted to get more Infinity Stones. Because Thanos once spent countless years making an Infinity Gauntlet, which is a prop that can hold 6 Infinity Stones. Many people in the universe know the existence of Infinity Stones. But no one has ever obtained more than 2 Infinity Stones, because the power of Infinity Stones is too strong. Just one stone can make people collapse. Even powerful people like Ancient One or Odin can only use 1 gem. Others, such as Ronan, the accuser among the Kree who was captured by Star-Lord and others before, need to use a prop called Hammer of Power to use the power of the Infinity Stone. Hammer of Power is not a prop to exert the full power of the gem, but a limiter of the power of the gem. Without this limiter, Ronan cannot use the Power Stone at all. And now, Loki plans to gather at least 3 Infinity Stones. She wants to completely kill the snake Jormungandr. Put an end to the legend, all prophecies and ancient gods, go to hell. I want to do my own thing. Not only to save Thor and Odin, Loki also plans to use the remaining power of killing Jormungandr to exile the Frost Giants. Asgard and the Frost Giants are mortal enemies. No matter what, there will be a battle, and the result of this battle is already doomed. The Frost Giants will definitely die. But the leader of the Frost Giants, Laufey, is actually his biological father. Odin is not his biological father, but more precisely, he is his uncle. In between, Loki didn't want to see her uncle kill her father. This was an unacceptable ending for her. Even if Laufey was willing to give up his life to pave the way for Loki, she still didn't want this ending. So she wanted to get 3 infinite gems and then kill the snake. Use the remaining power of killing the snake to ascend the throne. As long as she can kill Jormungandr, even if Odin objects, she can't stop herself from becoming the king of Asgard. And the first thing she did after becoming the Queen of Asgard was to expel and exile the Frost Giants, and it was expulsion rather than killing. Exile the Frost Giants to the negative space or other places that Asgard would not go. Although it is very dangerous to go to those places, at least there are still some chances to continue to live. And this is the only thing Loki can do for Laufey. Loki has already carried too many burdens, for Asgard, for the Frost Giants, for Laufey, Odin, and Thor. Loki felt a kind of exhaustion, a feeling of being unable to speak, of suffering. But it's all worth it, as long as I can achieve my wish. Let those legendary prophecies and ancient gods go to hell. My path should be walked by myself, not arranged by anyone. I am a descendant of the Frost Giants and the descendants of Asgard, and what I want can only be chosen by myself. Loki's belief is unwavering. As long as everything can go smoothly, then all the hard work is worth it. For example, now, she received a message from Lee Ji. Lee Ji expressed his desire to meet with her, and Loki smiled. It seems that her previous plan worked, and Lee Ji should send the space gem. P.S. I should have written it long ago, but the computer crashed twice. Blue screen twice, can you believe it? Exclamation mark. I lost nearly half a chapter every time. Oh my god. I'm about to collapse. Chapter 993, Vicious Curse. Long time no see, my dear Luoji. Lee Ji smiled at Luoji. His smile was very bright, but Luoji didn't feel happy at all when she saw it. Because every time this guy smiled like this, nothing good seemed to happen. His smile was like a cunning fox. Whenever he smiled proudly, someone would be knocked down by him. There was no doubt that Lee Ji must have done something weird again, and could her plan still proceed as originally planned? Luoji began to think about it in her heart. Lee Ji ignored Luoji's plan, he just smiled and said, I'm so happy to see you again. Do you want to go to the cafe for a cup of coffee and order a cake? Luoji looked disgusted. No, tell me, what do you want to talk to me about? It's like this, didn't we agree to make a deal before? And you also helped me capture a bunch of dark elves and so on, now I think it's time for these guys to come in handy. Lee Ji smiled, it's time for the Earthlings to really fight the aliens. Control the movements of these dark elves and give them low-intensity weapons. It can be used to train the Earthlings. Lee Ji did not hide his thoughts and plans. He just wanted the dark elves to start invading the Earth once, and use this invasion to remind the Earth to start preparing for war. And the war with the Chitauri will introduce the Inhumans, so that they can officially meet their fellow countrymen on Earth. Let more Earthlings understand this world and this universe. And the bigger plan after that is that Star-Lord and his people will bring information about the Nova Corps, so that the Earth Federation will officially establish diplomatic relations with the Nova Corps, and provide logistical support services. But these are all later stories. The first step now is to release the Dark Elves. According to the time, the Chitauri have only been in the solar system for 60 days, which does not give the Earth much time. This time, the Illuminati did not expect the current military strength of the Earthlings to be able to resist the Chitauri. The main responsibility for repelling and defeating the Chitauri must still be the Venus fleet. But even so, the Earth Federation cannot just sit there and watch the show. This is a battle to defend the Earth, and more Earthlings must participate. Regardless of how much effort is made, this is a question of sense of mission and belonging. When Loki heard Lee Ji's request, she frowned. Because she thought at first that Lee Ji had figured it out, and the space gem had been taken out by him, and he was going to give it to her. Isn't Nightwalker's favorite thing to do? Try to shift the blame to others, especially these troublesome and difficult to solve things. When will Nightwalker start to choose to face the tough battle head-on? Are you really going to bring in the Dark Elves? Loki began to ask tentatively, you have to know what it means to bring in the Dark Elves. When they enter the Earth and are so close to the Earth, they will be more sensitive to the space gem. Malekith really wants to get the space gem, and then attack Asgard to get the reality gem. They want the universe to return to the Dark Age. Loki held a sword of truth in her hand. She stared at Lee Ji and asked, do you really want to do this? Aren't you afraid of any accidents in this plan? As long as there is any accident, the Dark Elves will determine the specific location of the space gem. Then Malekith is likely to come with a large army to attack the Earth. You are playing with fire. Holding the sword of truth, Loki has the ability to see through all false lies. She is waiting for Lee Ji's answer. As long as Lee Ji has any false answer, she will know it immediately. But is Lee Ji going to tell a lie? No, He told the truth. Don't worry, it's okay. Because the space gem is no longer on Earth. Huh? Huh? Loki didn't react when she heard the first half of the sentence, but she woke up instantly when she heard the second half. What? I mean, the space gem has been sent away. You're right, the space gem is indeed a very troublesome thing for Earthlings. Li-Ji nodded seriously. We really shouldn't keep this thing, so it has been sent away. Loki suppressed the urge to beat Li-Ji and asked, where did you send it? Actually, I first proposed to send it to Asgard for safekeeping. Li-Ji was telling the truth. He did say so at the earliest meeting of the Illuminati. But your brother, Thor, thought this was not a good idea. It would bring a lot of pressure to Asgard, so he made another suggestion. He thought it should be sent to Nova Corps. You know the Nova Corps, the largest and most powerful armed organization in the Milky Way. Li-Ji said happily, but Loki's hand holding the Sword of Truth was shaking slightly. Because the Sword of Truth did not have any warning, Li-Ji was telling the truth. At this moment, Loki wanted to kill Thor. My dear brother, I am trying my best to save your life, but you are holding me back. So we finally reached a consensus that the Nova Corps is capable of facing the Dark Elves. Even if Malekith wants to get the Space Stone or something, he must be able to defeat the Nova Corps first. Your brother's ideology is great. Li-Ji nodded and praised Thor's brilliant idea. So we no longer need to be afraid of the Dark Elves. In fact, it is good to let some Dark Elves come in this time, so that they know that there is nothing they want here. At the same time, the Earth also has the ability to fight against them. In this way, if they want to attack an Earth that is worthless to them, the price they pay and the benefits they get are completely disproportionate. Li-Ji said one sentence after another. In this way, they will naturally give up the Earth, and the Earth will be safe. This is the best for you, me, and Thor, isn't it? Li-Ji said this playfully at last, and Loki suddenly raised his head. What the other party said seemed very straightforward, but there seemed to be something else behind it. Was this a warning? Or a test? Loki didn't want to delve into it. Well, if the Space Stone is also in the Nova Corps, then let the Dark Elves fight the Nova Corps. It just so happens that the Power Stone is also in their hands. In this way, although my idea of simply obtaining the Space Stone failed, it would only take a little more effort. In fact, Loki said to Li-Ji before, the Dark Elves leader Malekith has set his sights on the Earth. These words were actually made up by her, but of course they were not made up. Because whether Malekith would set his sights on the Earth depends entirely on the operation of her subsequent plan. But this time, Li-Ji threw the blame for the entire plan out of the solar system and flew to the center of the Milky Way. There is no need for me to keep my eyes on the Earth anymore. Luo-Ji took a deep breath and said, okay, then do it according to your idea. I will help you prepare 1,000 Dark Elf prisoners. I will let them launch a successful jailbreak and get some equipment. Send them to the battlefield you designated. You can handle the rest yourself. 1,000 Dark Elves with the fighting power of Captain Rogers are ready. Luo-Ji was ready to leave after saying this, because there was no point in staying here any longer. Li-Ji looked at Luo-Ji's back and suddenly shouted loudly, hey! Take it easy in life. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Isn't it good to smile more? Don't make yourself exhausted. There are still many people in this world who care about you. Luo-Ji stopped walking. She looked back at Li-Ji and shook her head gently. There are many things you don't understand. I can only say that sometimes ignorance is a kind of happiness. I hope you will always be happy like this. Luo-Ji had already stepped on the Rainbow Bridge and left Li-Ji thinking. Ignorance is happiness. I hope I will always be happy. This is scolding me. And it's a vicious curse. Li-Ji was indignant. Chapter 994. It's such a coincidence. Welcome to visit the mutants' new country, Tuvalu. Katie introduced the visiting envoys with a smile on her face. This is a group of envoys from the United Nations, mainly representing the world's major powers including the 5 permanent members. They came to Tuvalu for 2 purposes. The first was an invitation from Tuvalu, and the second was a mandate from their own country. Although Tuvalu has always been as open as possible, so far, Tuvalu has not really sent envoys to any country. The first reason is that Tuvalu used to be very small, so small that you can walk all over the country with your legs. And a tsunami will flood 80% of the country's land. No country is willing to send envoys here, even if it is forced to send, no one is willing to come. The second is that Tuvalu used to be a very poor country with no sense of existence. Everyone does not think that Tuvalu can play any role in the international community. So they habitually ignore this country. Why waste diplomatic resources on this country? Because of these two reasons, Tuvalu has not traditionally established a tradition of exchanging ambassadors and consuls with a certain country. But now it is different. Tuvalu has become a mutant country. And because of the emergence of X-Rebirth Potion and X-Beauty Potion, their influence in the international community is also increasing day by day. Now Tuvalu has become a force in the international community that cannot be ignored. Eliminate Tuvalu? This is impossible, because now the mutants are all on Tuvalu. Exclude Tuvalu? It is also impossible. There are countless people in their own country waiting to use X-Beauty Potion. It can be said that Tuvalu is now a country that needs to be taken seriously, but we don't know how to treat it. It's like a hedgehog that makes people have no way to bite. This time Katie invited a number of countries to send envoys to pay a friendly visit to Tuvalu, which is a signal of goodwill. At present, no official organization of a single country has visited Tuvalu. This foreign visit may determine the diplomatic attitude of various countries towards Tuvalu in the future. Therefore, various countries still attach great importance to sending their own delegations. In addition to the state visit, they also have to evaluate the current Tuvalu, evaluate the country's strength and political direction, so as to formulate the future diplomatic policy. Inside the Venus base, Dr. Hank touched his wine red hair and said, "There are already quite a few representatives in Tuvalu. Do you want to let the Dark Elves in?" Liji, who was playing Go Bang with Thor, looked at his watch and said, "There are still a few hours before the time agreed with Loki. Don't worry, let Katie and the others wait patiently for a while. By the way, are the X-Men ready for battle?" Liji once again won against Thor with 5 moves in a row. Thor's face was sour, because there was a bet in this game of Go Bang. However, the bet was not money, but that if the X-Men encountered an accident and could not solve the Dark Elves later, he would need to take action. Dr. Hank shook his body, turning his wine red hair into purple red, and said, "Everything is ready. As long as they appear at the designated location later, the X-Men will swarm over." How many media participated in the live broadcast or rebroadcast of Tuvalu's reception of guests from various countries? Liji once again started a new round of Go Bang with Thor. More than 200 international mainstream media, that's enough. They will pass on everything they see to the world through various channels. Dr. Hank looked at his purple red hair, pushed his black-framed glasses and asked Liji, "What do you think of this color?" Liji and Thor looked back at Dr. Hank's new hair color and said, "No, no. Liji, too old-fashioned." Thor, "Looks like an old lady wearing her flowered sweater from the 1980s. Dr. Hank thought for a while and said, "Okay, I'll change the color." Dr. Hank shook his whole body and changed his purple red hair to golden and red one. "Well, it looks much more majestic." Thor gave a heartfelt compliment. While he was admiring, Liji completed another massacre. 5 pieces. "You lost, Thor. Please. You and Hank are distracting me." Thor was indignant. "I don't want to go to Tuvalu to fight a group of Dark Elves. And didn't Loki say that he would only release 100 Dark Elves to Tuvalu? It's just 100 Steve Rogers without shields. The X-Men can handle it. I really don't need to go." Thor didn't know why he felt very resistant. Liji pushed him. "Fortunately, Captain Rogers is now in charge of the construction of Sky City and is not here. Otherwise, he would have fought with you after hearing what you said." Thor waved his hand without comment, looking indifferent. He didn't think Captain Rogers could compete with him. Of course, this was because he didn't know that Captain Rogers had the talent of fighting anyone 50-50. Simply put, Captain Rogers has the 50-50 plugin. It's true that there are 100 Captain Rogers, and they don't have shields. But they should be wearing simple armor and some energy weapons, both for close combat and ranged combat. This is a show for the whole world, so some damage is fine, but I don't want to see anyone die in this show. You are just an insurance. Liji indicated that the world needs the Dragon Warrior. By the way, you are not afraid that the Dragon Warrior will see someone, right? Liji looked at Thor suspiciously. Thor laughed dryly. Haha, haha. Who would I be afraid of seeing? Storm. Liji exposed Thor without hesitation. Speaking of which, what should you do with your Christine, Jane Foster and the Asgardian Valkyrie Sif? Lan told me that you seem to have secretly met with Christine before. In front of a cold drink shop, Lan said she saw you treating Christine to vanilla ice cream. What? Did you convince Christine? But how do you solve the problems of Jane Foster and Sif? Oh, by the way, there's Storm. Did she send you any large-scale selfies? Storm's large-scale selfies. Dr. Hank, who was originally fine-tuning his fur color, frowned. He stared at Thor. Thor, are you playing with the feelings of my students? As he said this, Dr. Hank connected to Professor X's communication. Charles, there's something I think you need to come over to deal with. It's about your precious student. Thor looked at Li Ji, his expression full of the breath of violent comics. Li Ji could see from his eyes that he kept saying, XXXXXXXX. Needless to say, he must have used all the swear words he learned from Gordon Ramsay. But Li Ji didn't care at all. Anyway, you don't dare to curse out loud, and even if you curse out loud, I can pretend not to hear it, and even if I hear it, I can pretend that you are not talking about me again. Even if you are talking about me again, I can resist it with thick skin. Finally, Thor grabbed the grid book used to play Go Bang, and he gritted his teeth and said, I will go to the sky above Tuvalu and wait for orders now. Thor left the Venus base. Li Ji and Dr. Hank exchanged a look, indicating that the operation was successful. Dr. Hank began to indulge in the changes in his fur color again, and Li Ji was helping him choose the right fur color for him. Since the X Beauty Potion, colorful magic hair was developed, Dr. Hank has been obsessed with it. And this potion will also become a hot-selling product that major cosmetics companies are competing to launch. From then on, humans are free from the trouble of hair dyeing and hair damage. In the future, everyone can have any hair color they want. For example, some officials who went to Tuvalu used this drug to turn their white hair into black. Chapter 995. It's such a coincidence. This time, the UN delegation had nearly 100 people, which was the largest delegation Tuvalu had ever received. As the president, Katie led the representatives of various countries to visit the main work direction of Tuvalu. One was the X-Newborn Potion. When Katie led the representatives to visit the factory and introduced it, she always said, the X-Newborn Potion was invented to free more people from pain. When they arrived at the production factory of the X-Beauty Potion, a representative from Europe asked, President Katie, if the X-Newborn Potion is to free more people from the pain of disease, then what is the X-Beauty Potion? Is it to make money? This question is very sharp. In fact, the emergence of the X-Beauty Potion has a great impact on various countries. Citizens of many countries are strongly demanding that the government introduce the X-Beauty Potion. Because the X-Beauty Potion has many attractive abilities. As Li Ji said before, not everyone desires to have such a strong fighting power. Because many people's desire for fighting is to hunt female fire dragons in the PS4's Monster Hunter world. If they really let them PK in real life, just a fear of pain can make many people back off. However, the use of many life skills is something that more people are eager for. For example, the previously released potion that prevents obesity, shaping potion, and hair dye potion, etc. On some unspeakable websites, there are still some legends circulating. It is said that Tuvalu also has a kind of X potion that is fatally attractive to men. Many people are seeking the truth. And many people said that as long as this potion is real and released, then they must become mutants, and it is for life. Does this potion actually exist? It does exist. For example, the breast enhancement potion is taken from this gene. The holder of the gene is named Wesley. He and his girlfriend Granger have chosen to settle in Tuvalu. Dr. Hank extracted Wesley's genetic ability and carefully split it, and sold this ability separately. This can ensure the maximization of benefits, and at the same time, it will not be used by some bored people for some very dangerous things. However, the release of this potion will be delayed for a while. There are still countries that have not approved the release of X-Beauty Potion. Tony plans to wait for more countries to relax restrictions and then promote the unified listing globally. The Illuminati boss believes that once this potion is released, countless people will go crazy. Li Ji has prepared a new nickname for Tony, the Human Emperor. Well, I believe Tony is worthy of this nickname. Countless people will crown Tony as the Emperor in their hearts. The title of Iron Man is too weak. Even in the Lego, the Owl movie released next door, the password for the owl to open the owl cave is, Iron Man is too weak. So the title of Iron should be thrown into the dust of history. From the king of cosmetics, the nemesis of baldness, the savior of obesity, and the emperor of beauty, Tony will eventually change his job and be crowned as the Human Emperor. Just selling the X Beauty potion can make Tony famous as the actual producer of the X Beauty potion. Katie has strong confidence in facing this kind of problem. She smiled and replied, "Making money? No, not really. In fact, we are just providing a possibility. A possibility to bring a better life to everyone. Humanity is always making progress. We have evolved from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic, from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age, from steam power to the current-controlled nuclear fusion. In fact, we have been moving forward and exploring," Katie said very seriously. In the past, there were only 3 reasons why people hated mutants. The first was the uncontrollable parts of mutant genes. The second was the harm caused by mutant genes. The third was that only a few people could enjoy the benefits of mutant genes. Katie said to the delegations of various countries, "And now we are working hard to eliminate these 3 points. We are committed to showing the best side of mutant genes. Humans should have the power to choose their own evolutionary direction. We should not be stubborn and always resist all kinds of new things. In fact, why not give it a try? Even if you find it is not good, at least we still have the X newborn potion to back it up, right?" Katie's speech made the media following the delegation start to record frantically. This was the most radical public speech Katie had ever made since the establishment of Tuvalu. Here she mentioned the key word, that is, mutants are the future direction of human evolution. Not everyone agrees with this. Especially those who hate mutants. Even if they don't hate mutants, some people still think that what Katie said is a bit too arbitrary. Because some people still think that cyborg life and biological transformation are the future direction of human evolution. So immediately a delegation and the reporters following the delegation raised a rebuttal. "President Katie, you are too arbitrary. We can't be sure that the direction of life evolution is definitely right." Katie shrugged, "Who can know right or wrong? Just like we never knew that we could start the cosmic age so quickly. Although it is still the early stage of the cosmic age. And we also foresaw alien civilizations during the Battle of New York, Thor pretending to be. Who of you can guarantee that alien civilizations will attack the Earth in the next moment?" Katie said, "What we do is just to make some choices. Whether it is right or wrong, we always have to try, right?" What she said caused some reporters to laugh in low voices. Someone even asked on the spot, "President Katie, do you really think aliens will attack us?" "It's hard to say, maybe it will take hundreds of years, but maybe in the next second. But my companions and I are always ready. We established a mutant nation not to divide humanity, but to unite humanity better. There should be more communication and understanding between mutants and ordinary people," Katie said sincerely to the representatives and reporters. "In fact, I think in the eyes of aliens, there is no difference between mutants and ordinary people in this world. As long as they want to be hostile to us, then we are all their enemies. Our names, status, race, gender, beliefs, etc. are all equal in front of their butcher knives." A representative loosened his tie uncomfortably and said, "It's a bit alarmist. The Battle of New York was just an accident. Could this accident happen at any time in the next second?" The words of this representative resonated with a lot of people, and most people had the same idea as him. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? The alien invasion happened so coincidentally in my lifetime? But there are such coincidences in this world, because in the next second a strong energy wave came from the sea near Tuvalu. Chapter 996 The Miserable Life of the Dark Elves. A strong energy wave came from the sea off Tuvalu, and this unobstructed energy wave was captured by the major powers in the world in a very short time. The leaders of countries including the United States, China, and the United Kingdom received the news at the first time. The President of the United States, who was swinging with his Secretary of State on the golf course, was talking to his Secretary of State about his future retirement plan. The farm in Kansas was burned. But the insurance company paid a sum of money. I decided to buy a new farm in Massachusetts. This time I want to raise some ponies and Scottish dogs. What do you think of dachshunds? The fat body and short legs. The twisting and turning look like a dachshund. The president was very excited when he mentioned the petty plan to raise in the future. The Secretary of State shook his head. If I want to raise a short-legged dog, I prefer a corgi. You can always see its big butt twisting when you walk the dog, and its short legs can't run fast. If it wants to escape, it can be easily caught. The president fell into thinking, should he raise a dachshund or a corgi? Just when the two bigwigs in the American political circle were thinking about what kind of cute dog they should raise, The Secretary General of the White House quickly came to the golf course and interrupted the two bigwigs' disagreement on raising dogs. The Secretary General said to the President and the Secretary of State in a very serious manner, "Your Excellencies, we are afraid that we are in big trouble." "What?" the two dog-raising bigwigs answered at the same time. "Off the coast near Tuvalu, our military radar detected a strong energy fluctuation. The energy index is comparable to a medium-sized nuclear explosion." The Secretary General's expression was not joking, and now I am asking someone to contact our representative sent to Tuvalu to see what is going on there. What should we do if Tuvalu has developed nuclear weapons? Or if someone declares war on Tuvalu without declaring war and uses nuclear weapons, should we intervene? How should we intervene? Mr. President, the Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations meeting has been urgently convened. Should our country enter a state of war readiness? Should we issue a national notification order? Because it has been more than 70 years since humans have used nuclear weapons in actual wars. Listening to the Secretary General's words, the President sighed and covered his face with his big hands. Why? Why do I have to deal with all these things? I'm just a dog owner who wants to raise some dachshunds and corgis after retirement. Why do I have to deal with so many things in the last years of my career? The President was heartbroken. All 36 million cells in his body were resisting this, but he had to follow the Secretary General to the Contact Operations meeting. Because as the Supreme Commander of the United States, he had to make the final decision. The same thing happened in China. After hearing about the energy fluctuations comparable to a nuclear explosion off the coast of Tuvalu, the boss who was eating a midnight snack of steamed buns and fried liver could only grab a steamed bun with pickled mustard greens and pork filling with his hands and walk towards the operations meeting room while eating his midnight snack. The whole world noticed this powerful energy fluctuation. And in Tuvalu, there are even more people who can actually feel this energy fluctuation. In the northeastern sea of Tuvalu, a strong light flashed. It was as if a new sun had risen on the sea level. The representatives of various countries who were originally following Katie to visit the pharmaceutical factory and the Tuvalu reclamation project were almost dazzled by the sudden strong light. Some people shed tears because of the pain in their eyes. And President Katie, who had been in charge of leading everyone, seemed to be shocked by this sudden change. Everyone was frightened by the sudden change. No one knew what happened, only Katie seemed to be the first to react. She calmly commanded in this change, "Send all representatives and reporters to the emergency shelter. All X-Men are dispatched. We must find out what happened." The light dissipated, and a team of 100 dark elves appeared on the sea northeast of Tuvalu. The centurion of this team shook his head, and he was still a little dizzy. Since the last defeat in the Elf Kingdom, they have been captured by Asgard. It is not easy to be a prisoner of Asgard. In addition to not eating well and sleeping well every day, they also have to do all kinds of hard labor, including mining those extremely difficult to mine Eurometal raw materials, and also to help Odin regularly clean up some of the debris around the thunder pool he controls. These are extremely dangerous things, and after doing these jobs, the Dark Elves only have 3 pieces of black bread a day. The so-called squatting kill is just like this. Don't think that the war between gods is so civilized. In fact, the war between gods is even more cruel. As long as one side fails, the winner will naturally squeeze every bit of the loser's value. If the Asgard warrior god falls into the hands of the Dark Elves, their situation will not be much better. In addition to daily labor, sometimes Asgard's supervisors will also force the Dark Elves to do various other things. For example, washing the clothes and socks of the dwarf craftsmen. These dwarf craftsmen are craftsmen who provide services for Asgard. God knows how long these dwarves haven't washed their clothes, and how long they haven't taken a bath. The dwarves who deal with ore iron furnaces every day are not a very clean race. Some of the clothes they took off can no longer see the original color. The smell of their socks and deerskin boots can make the strongest Dark Elves shed tears of regret. Well, it may also be choked. In short, the centurion felt that although they were prisoners of war, they were treated inhumanely. In fact, it would be better to let the people of Asgard chop off their heads with a knife. But Loki, the second prince of Asgard, seemed to be determined to play with him. He firmly opposed the execution of himself and others. Even if he joined other prisoners to make trouble, Loki would not kill these Dark Elves. Instead, he oppressed himself and others more and more. There are more than 1,000 Dark Elf compatriots. Every day, they are responsible for washing the clothes of hundreds of thousands of dwarf craftsmen, including the dwarf's hometown. Asgard made a lot of money by outsourcing the laundry business of the dwarves, and the dwarves contributed a lot of minerals in exchange for this business. Although the dwarves don't like to be clean, it doesn't mean that they don't like to wear fresh clothes. So Asgard solved a very troublesome problem for them. And they asked whether Asgard could expand this outsourcing business. Asgard made a lot of money, but it was pitiful for its dark elf compatriots. How many people have edema and eczema because of washing clothes in water every day? Many dark elf warriors have ulcers on their hands. But the demon Loki has no mercy. So the Centurion of this team and several other surviving Centurions made a bold decision. They want to break out of the prison in Asgard. They want to escape from this laundry hell and teach the Asgardians a lesson. Chapter 997 Kill all the dogs of Asgard. And God will not let down those who work hard. The Centurion finally found an opportunity when he was taken out by the Asgard supervisor to wash clothes. Perhaps it was because the Dark Elves' dormancy during this period of time showed an illusion that the Dark Elves had surrendered and were willing to be slaves and laundry workers. So the people of Asgard actually asked them to start washing some used weapons. Oh my god. Do these Asgardians think about problems with their big toes? The Centurion thought this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Although these weapons look very old, it seems that they have been piled up in the warehouse for hundreds of years without being used or maintained. And the shape is also very strange. It is not the golden weapons and armor commonly used in Asgard. Instead, there are all kinds of them, which looks like the spoils captured over the years have been thrown together casually. Maybe the people of Asgard want to hold a commemorative exhibition? Commemorate their great achievements over the years? The Centurion thought so, and he felt it was very likely. With the arrogant character of the Asgardians, they must think that they are the most powerful and greatest existence in the universe. They always use various ways to show their uniqueness. But those things are not what the Centurion cares about. Since they have such a good opportunity, they should not miss it. After meeting with several other Centurions, everyone decided to use these weapons to start a riot. It is a bit difficult to escape from Asgard. The idea of escaping from prison is to make some trouble for Asgard. For example, go to their Asgard palace to fight and kill. Kill as many as you can. Anyway, they have no intention of leaving here alive. So the riot started like this. In the gap between the two groups of supervisors, the Dark Elves suddenly picked up their weapons and launched a unified riot. With weapons, they relied on unexpected attacks to defeat the supervisors of Asgard. They approached Asgard step by step. The defense outside this royal city is very tight, but the inside seems much looser. The Centurion and his men did not encounter as fierce resistance as they imagined. It can be said that the progress was very smooth, everything was going very well. However, several Centurions who were killing with blood did not notice a problem. That is, although some Asgardian warriors were injured in the battle, no one died in the rebellion. Every Asgardian warrior retreated immediately once he was injured, and there was no Asgardian warrior who was ready to die and fought bravely with more than a dozen serious injuries. But this is understandable. Now their leader is not a brave and unparalleled Thor. Instead, it is the god of lies Loki who is mainly based on calculation, conspiracy and strategy. Just when the attack was going smoothly and they were about to escape from the detention area, Loki appeared with a group of elf wizards. Then a huge magic circle appeared, and a strong light flashed. When the Centurion and his men opened their eyes, they were already on the sea in the northeast corner of Tuvalu. More than 100 dark elves fell into the water collectively. Are we escaping? The Centurion looked at the blue sea and clear sky. This place was not Asgard at all. It seemed that he and others really escaped. There is land ahead. A Centurion pointed to Tuvalu, which was only 1 kilometer away from them. For the dark elves who have the fighting power of a US captain, a 1-kilometer sea swim is nothing. They swam to the shore quickly with their weapons. This is the extension stage of Tuvalu's land reclamation project. Large pieces of wasteland. The Centurion looked far away when he climbed ashore with his men. Where is this? He looked like he wanted to ask someone, but none of the men around him could answer. So he could only talk to himself. Did the Asgardians let us go? Impossible. A Centurion shook his head immediately after hearing this. How could the demon Loki be so kind? His life is to torture us for fun. I guess this place must be a very dangerous place. He has no reason to let us go. He must want people to kill us here. The Centurion's tone was firm, and what he said made sense. The Centurion nodded and said to his men, "Everyone, Get your weapons ready. Although Katie had asked everyone to take shelter before, it was not so easy to ask reporters to take shelter. Some people are not afraid of anything in order to make a big news. When the Dark Elf 100-man team appeared in the northeast corner of Tuvalu, 2 reporters who were supposed to take shelter secretly ran out of the shelter. They hid behind a breakwater. Tim, set up the camera quickly. Use a telephoto lens to see what has landed. Is there any connection with the strange incident that happened before? The reporter urged his photographer to move faster. The experienced Tim quickly adjusted his telephoto camera and pointed the lens at the Dark Elf team in the distance. Through the camera lens, Tim saw the Dark Elves with weapons and full concentration preparing for battle. Oh my God! Tim took a breath. The bright white skin of the Dark Elves was like a person who had lost all blood, and the black armor they wore made the color contrast even more obvious. Plus their pointed ears and blood-red pupils. Although the Dark Elves are humanoid creatures, Tim is really not sure if these creatures are really human. Combined with the sudden energy fluctuations, Tim has a bold idea. He said to his partner, "Damn, we may have caught a big news. Maybe aliens really visit the Earth again this time. And this time they may not be kind." The Centurion and his team held their weapons and were on full alert. The 3 X-Men teams in Tuvalu have all arrived. Although the number is much smaller than that of the Dark Elf Centurion, they are vaguely surrounding the Dark Elves. Katie, wearing a full black combat uniform, shouted to the Centurion, "Now, put down your weapons. Report your names and intentions, otherwise we will not rule out the use of force against you." Logan's claws have been stretched out, and Cyclops has put his hands on the glasses. Storm has begun to control lightning. Colossus stood at the front of the team with his whole body made of steel. The atmosphere reached the most tense state. The Centurion couldn't understand what Katie was shouting at all. Because they didn't know English, but it didn't matter. The Centurion could feel that someone on the opposite side had the scent of Asgard on him, and that was enough. That white-haired woman had the scent of a powerful Asgard god on her. This is still Asgard's territory. It doesn't matter, it's a war anyway, killing anyone is killing. Kill Asgard's running dogs, kill 1 to get back the money, kill 2 and you'll make a profit. A fierce light flashed in the Centurion's blood-red eyes. He raised his hand and said to his team members, "Ready. Attack. Kill all the dogs of Asgard." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 998 What Happened? At the Centurion's command, the Dark Elves' 100-man team immediately launched an offensive. Although they were not using their usual weapons and armor. Although they did not know the strength of the enemy, they always went forward. Well, or it can be said that they were relatively brainless. In fact, the Dark Elves were indeed quite brainless at times, which did not mean that they were not smart enough. In fact, although the Dark Elves took the path of magical civilization, from the perspective of civilization progress, they were much more advanced than the Earthling civilization in some subjects. But the ultimate dream of Malekith, the Dark Elves' boss, was to return the universe to the Dark Age. I don't understand his logic at all. If the Dark Elves did not do these things and just lived a good life, life would be quite easy. This is a bit like the supervillains in Hollywood routine movies. They all have a vulgar and powerless reason to do all kinds of bad things. The Dark Elves and Asgard have been fighting for many years, and it can be said that they have rich combat experience. Although facing an unknown enemy, the Centurion's 100-man team still instantly deployed a formation. Melee fighters with armor and shields stood in the front, while fighters with ranged weapons were at the core of the formation. When the Centurion roared, all the Dark Elves with ranged firepower opened fire at the same time. Various strange lights were emitted from the ranged weapons in their hands. These weapons were originally the spoils of war captured by Asgard in various wars over the years. Some weapons were thrown into the warehouse for many years without maintenance after being captured. So many weapons had brilliant light effects after firing, but the power was very poor and the penetration was very poor. It was like Colossus was hit by several beams, but he did not step back. However, these weapons are still lethal, so the X-Men still try to avoid these rays. And these beam weapons can instantly tear these rocks apart when they hit the rocks of the breakwater. In an instant, the entire northeast corner of Tuvalu was in chaos, and the energy of the beam weapons was overflowing. Biubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiubiu ventriloquism. Dr. Hank helplessly stroked his forehead. Can you be more serious? Nightwalker. Ah. Li Ji looked back at Dr. Hank. I am very serious. Super serious. I have been observing whether those reconnaissance satellites in low Earth orbit are close to Tuvalu to check what happened to them. Dr. Hank, with yellow hair in the color of Chinese civet cat, asked, so are they close? Ah. The US reconnaissance satellites are close, and China's are coming too. While Li Ji and Dr. Hank were chatting about this, the reconnaissance satellites of various countries changed their movement trajectories and conducted reconnaissance in the direction of Tuvalu. Because the energy fluctuations like a nuclear explosion before really shocked many people. They want to find out what happened. If a nuclear war really broke out, they need to prepare early. The various images sent back by the reconnaissance satellites this time were shocking. Because it was not the expected nuclear war. Instead, the X-Men fought with a group of weirdos. What's going on? The President of the United States looked at the Dark Elves fighting with the X-Men in the war conference room and asked his defense minister in confusion, which army is this? Which country is preparing to invade Tuvalu? The President frowned. Because Tuvalu is now in a very delicate stage in terms of international status. The President hopes that Tuvalu will maintain this situation in recent years. It would be best if there were changes a few years after his retirement. But if Tuvalu had various accidents at this time, he would not want to see it. The defense minister looked at the Dark Elves on the image for a long time and said, I can't tell. I don't remember any country or organization using similar weapons and equipment. They use small-scale energy weapons. As far as I know, there are only 2 people on Earth who have mastered miniaturized energy weapons and can achieve such destructive power. The defense minister said seriously. One is Tony Stark. But he has no reason to attack Tuvalu. His Dawn technology has just reached an important business agreement with Tuvalu. The other is Doom's Latveria, whose soldiers use melta-guns. But he also has no reason to attack Tuvalu. The Minister of Defense touched the second button on his chest. Latveria is also a beneficiary of the deal with Tuvalu. They underwrote the X-Beauty and X-Rebirth potions in the entire Eastern Europe and even part of Western Europe. From this deal, Doom made a lot of money. The President was still frowning. Then who will it be? The X-Men and the Dark Elves seemed to be fighting fiercely, but in fact it was just a show. The Dark Elves did not use their own weapons, no dark ray guns, no wormhole grenades, no Dark Elves armor. They are now just a group of Captain Rogers using some second-rate weapons. And they are captains without vibranium shields. So although it looks like a fierce fight, lightning and light beams are flying together. Logan waved his claws and killed in and out of the formation. But this is essentially a performance. Just like watching WWE wrestling. Reporters hiding in the dark recorded the entire process of this battle in detail. And the intelligence departments of other countries also sent the images back to their own countries via satellite. Everyone was curious, where did this group of guys who suddenly attacked Tuvalu come from? And what was the matter with the huge energy fluctuations that suddenly appeared before they came? Just when everyone was puzzled, news came from Eastern Europe. An equally strong energy fluctuation came from near Latveria. A group of guys similar to the weirdos that appeared in Tuvalu appeared in Latveria. And there were more of them, up to 500 people, and they were fully armed. When they just appeared on the territory of Latveria, they were discovered by Latvian soldiers. And they were surrounded by the Doom Guards who were urgently dispatched, and finally a battle broke out. And this is not over yet. In the test site of the new MiZ-01 armor that Tony Stark and the Osborn group jointly experimented with, a strong energy fluctuation came in a desert in New Mexico. A team of 100 Dark Elves suddenly appeared, and they looked malicious. Tony had already started to fight with them with his Iron Legion. In addition to these places, there were also some places where the Dark Elf team suddenly appeared. For example, at the construction site of the Eurasian Super High-Speed Rail. Their arrival caused a commotion, and the soldiers who usually used mechanical rifles were no match for these Dark Elves. Fortunately, Dr. Banner was on the scene, and Dr. One Punch punched with a force that could cause mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. This time, the sudden strange events around the world have awakened countries. Some people are asking, what happened? P.S. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. I wish you all a happy New Year in advance. Well, today I have to cook New Year's dishes, prepare Buddha jumps over the wall, fry meatballs, and make barbecued pork. Well, very busy. Chapter 999 Alien Invasion. This is an attack on the whole world, not just Tuvalu and Latveria. After that, similar incidents of the Dark Elf invasion occurred all over the world. A total of 1,000 Dark Elf teams attacked all over the Earth. Fortunately, they did not cause much damage. Although each of them has the same strength as Captain America in terms of data, in actual combat, one Rogers can probably destroy a 100-man team by himself. Because Rogers has a shield and hidden talents. So sometimes the data on the books cannot be taken seriously. Another point is that the sad thing about the invading Dark Elves is that almost everywhere they appear, heavy troops or superheroes will soon appear. In Tuvalu, they need to face the X-Men who are always prepared for war. In New Mexico, there is Tony Stark and his Iron Army. Just a group of Rogers without shields, Tony can still beat them. In Western Europe, there's Bruce Banner, the one-punch doctor, the man with the highest physical attack attribute on the Earth. Even Thor would not want to fight him head-on. In Eastern Europe, there were Latveria's elite soldiers, and Doom had already set up a pocket formation. Was it a coincidence that such an invasion occurred in 4 places around the world at the same time? No one thought it was a coincidence. This was a premeditated attack. Captain Rogers contacted the world's major leaders at the emergency meeting of the SWORD to express his views. Gentlemen, this is not an accident. Captain Rogers' resolute face revealed a trace of solemnity. Although we repelled this attack in the first place, this does not mean that we can sit back and relax. The major leaders of various countries participated in this video conference because everyone wanted to know what was going on. The Asian part did not receive the invasion of the Dark Elves, but Latveria in the Eastern European part not far from China was attacked. As a very close neighbor, China really wants to know what happened. So the Chinese boss asked almost immediately, "So, Director Rogers, what is your conclusion?" Rogers said to the bosses in the video conference, according to the conclusion of Tony Stark, the consulting scientist of SWRD, this is an invasion of extraterrestrial civilization. When Captain Rogers said this conclusion, all the bosses attending the meeting were a little surprised. But everyone is used to seeing the storm. So no one behaved very badly. However, the micro-expressions on everyone's faces showed that the bosses' inner thoughts were not as calm as they seemed. The President of the United States tapped the table with his index finger and said, "Director Rogers, is this conclusion responsible?" The establishment of SWRD was to deal with possible aliens. Captain Rogers nodded, "Mr. President, this statement is responsible. In this attack, 4 top scientists on our planet witnessed and detected everything at close range. Dr. Doom in Latveria, Tony Stark in New Mexico, Dr. Bruce Banner in Western Europe, and Professor Charles in Tuvalu." Captain Rogers reported the names of the most outstanding scientists on Earth. Needless to say, Dr. Banner and Tony, these 2 people originally had a deep intersection with the US government. Dr. Banner is now a special consultant scientist for SWRD and SHIELD. Tony Stark is the actual chief scientific advisor of SWRD. Professor Charles was already a well-known scientist in the 1990s. Although he is a mutant, he has always maintained intersections with mainstream society. As for Dr. Doom, okay. Although Latveria and many countries in the world are not on good terms, and many people don't want to admit it. But everyone has to admit that Doom is indeed a genius, the top one. Otherwise, he couldn't have lit up the entire Latvian technology tree by himself. And made Latveria regional hegemon. This time, 4 world-class scientists were exposed to the attack at the same time, so what would they think? Captain Rogers didn't keep it a secret. He said to the bigwigs attending the meeting, "This time I specially invited these 4 scientists to participate in this video conference at the same time." As Captain Rogers' voice fell, the other 4 originally dark screens were awakened. Tony and the other 4 have officially connected. The bigwigs did not object to Director Rogers doing this. Even though some people hate Doom among the 4, everyone still remained restrained in the face of this matter. "Everyone, tell me what you think." Captain Rogers threw the topic to the 4 scientists. The bigwigs were also waiting for the 4 scientists to speak and see what they were going to say. The first to speak was Tony Stark. "Okay, Director Rogers. I was in New Mexico when the anomaly occurred. I was in charge of the weapons experiment of the MiZ-01 armor. Halfway through the experiment, An abnormal energy fluctuation was transmitted from the radar of my iron armor. Then a group of strange alien creatures appeared. They were armed and had bad intentions. When persuasion failed, I used the iron armor to kill these creatures. Tony said calmly. Then I began to check the weapons they left behind, but I'm sorry. I couldn't find anything useful. The structure of their weapons is completely different from any known to the Earthlings. Tony frowned when he said this. At this time, doom took over. Yes, I have no meaning for Tony Stark's words. I disassembled all the seized weapons. I found that the structure used in their weapons does not belong to the known civilization of our Earth, including the energy supply and conduction methods, and finally the killing mode of energy conversion into light and heat. They are all very different from everything we know. Doom is an expert in weapons as good as Tony. Professor Charles continued, we dissected the dead alien creatures, and they are completely different from us in terms of body structure. The organizational structure and operation of their organs are also completely different. Dr. Banner spoke last, and I discovered something during the battle. The physical strength of these creatures is extremely high. I don't want to say this, but their physical strength is at least comparable to Captain America Steve Rogers. And we all know that Captain Rogers is the limit of what the human body can reach. Everyone looked at Dr. Banner, as if asking with their eyes, as the Hulk and Dr. One Punch, don't you feel guilty for saying this? But Dr. Banner coughed twice and said, of course, my situation is special and not comparable. Captain Rogers made the final summary. From the above situation, it is not difficult for us to draw a conclusion. Although it is a bit absurd and difficult to accept, we do have to face it. Gentlemen, we have been invaded by extraterrestrial life. This time it is not an accident, but a premeditated attack. It's just that the number of enemy invasions this time is too small, and we happen to repel them. But will we be so lucky next time? Captain Rogers and the 4 scientists looked serious, as if everything was true. Chapter 1000 Negligence. Big Boss, have you heard? Luigi arrived at the headquarters of his Marvel Entertainment Company early in the morning, and his personal secretary came up to him and whispered in his ear. What? Luigi was confused by this sudden question. Aliens are attacking the Earth. His personal secretary, Miss Catherine, who graduated from the University of California, Los Angeles, said in an exaggerated tone. We are attacked by aliens. Big Boss, don't you know? Catherine stared at Luigi in disbelief with her blue eyes. Now it's all over the internet. Tuvalu, New Mexico, Latvia and somewhere in Europe have all been attacked. And this attack was premeditated. Several reporters in Tuvalu took pictures of the aliens attacking the Earth at that time, and now it's all over the internet. Catherine said very seriously. Big Boss, don't you know yet? Now everyone is discussing whether the aliens are really going to attack and colonize the Earth, and whether the Earth can defend against the aliens' attack. Now many people on the internet are saying that this is just the vanguard of the aliens. There may be millions of troops to attack the Earth later. It is said that every alien soldier has the fighting power of Captain America Steve Rogers. It's terrible. One Captain Rogers helped the Allies turn the tide of the war. What if there are a million Captain Rogers? Oh my God. The Earth will fall in an instant. Catherine said this, her face full of worry. Luigi held his forehead helplessly. He clearly chose a top student with 5 years of work experience and graduated from a prestigious university to be his personal secretary. Why doesn't Catherine look pale at all when facing a catastrophe? Luigi could only say to his secretary, okay, Catherine. The aliens haven't appeared yet, and you still need to work hard. If you think about other things during work hours, I may need to deduct your salary. Think about the house you just bought in New York, and you still have 20 years of loan to pay. Monthly bank bills and credit card accounts, plus the tax season is coming soon. Unless you die, the bank will not care whether the aliens attack or not. They will not reduce the amount of money they pay every month. Instead of worrying about aliens attacking the Earth, it is better to care about the company's data reports. In addition, even if there are really aliens, and the paper data is as powerful as Captain Rogers, but as long as they don't have Captain Rogers' shield and his chest muscles, then there is nothing to worry about. Luigi finally made a joke. Catherine's gossip did not cause a response from her boss, and she went back to work a little disappointed. Since the Battle of New York, most people on Earth have a picture in their hearts. That is, aliens do exist, and they are not just a concept in science fiction movies. After this idea exists in the mind, no one will find it strange if any incident about aliens is circulated on the internet. Just like the attack of the Dark Elves this time, it is difficult to block the news. There were reporters in Tuvalu who saw it, and some representatives of the delegation and accompanying personnel saw it. In addition to Dr. Banner, a group of railway workers also saw it at the railway construction site in Europe. In addition, people in Latvia and New Mexico saw it on the spot and became witnesses. There are too many people who witnessed the alien invasion this time, probably tens of thousands of people. It is impossible for the government to completely block the news. Rumors are flying all over the internet. It is normal for Catherine to know about this and spread it as an unusual gossip. At this time, the government needs to face this matter more actively. This is not the legendary Roswell incident. The SWRD led by Captain Rogers has issued a warning to all governments. The Earth must be prepared for possible war. This is a premeditated attack. The Earth Federation began to adjust its looseness outside and tightness inside. The most obvious adjustment is to start increasing investment in space battleships. And several top scientists, including Tony, have issued warnings. If the Earth cannot keep the enemy out of the Earth, then we need to prepare a policy of tenacious resistance on Earth. For a while, all countries on Earth felt that a storm was coming. Because the invasion of the Dark Elves this time was real, when the bodies of the Dark Elves were placed in front of the leaders of various countries, no one could pretend to turn a blind eye. Although this nervous feeling is invisible and intangible, it has begun to spread to society. On the internet, many people's fear is intensifying. People are always ignorant of what they are afraid of. Although the number of Dark Elves this time is small and they have all been killed. But what if the other side really wants to invade with a large army? Can the people on Earth resist it? Everyone has a question mark in their minds. There are many people like Catherine who have become a little nervous after hearing all kinds of rumors. After returning to his office, Li Ji knocked on his desk and thought for a while. He and other bigwigs including the Illuminati really need to establish a sense of crisis and urgency for the Earth Federation. But at the same time, I don't want this sense of urgency to squeeze the general public and make them feel suffocated. Because if the pressure is too great, many people are likely to collapse. In the end, they will do all kinds of irrational things. For example, the pessimists who think that the Earthlings will lose and the aliens will win. They may do all kinds of things under this pressure, such as looting and smashing. It is very important to give the public confidence. But I can't drive out the interstellar fleet now. Then say to the Earthlings, look, this is my warship to protect you. Well, this is definitely not the right thing to say, right? And the Earth Federation can completely suppress the matter this time. Captain Rogers has sent a message that it is very likely that the Earth Federation will make this matter public in the near future. Let the public know about this. And by that time, after the government admits this, there will be more pressure on ordinary people. And this time will be the most turbulent moment in society. The government will definitely suppress the possible chaos, but Li Ji feels that he was a little careless when he was thinking about this matter. It was not until Catherine reminded him that he realized it. After thinking for a while, Li Ji felt that he should do something. The time until the Chitauri approach the solar system is getting shorter and shorter. Li Ji called his personal secretary Catherine. Catherine, please inform our comic editors. I need them to work overtime to produce some special comics. Also, please contact 2 directors for me. I need to shoot a few short films urgently. P.S. Happy New Year to everyone on the first day of the Chinese New Year. In the new year, both academic and career will flourish, and love and friendship will be abundant. Although the year of the dog is a year without Valentine's Day, at least single dogs don't need to enjoy critical hits anymore. I wish the dogs a happy new year. In addition, although today is the first day of the Chinese New Year, there will still be 2 updates today. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.